Hey, Baratie, isn't that the one where a man raised in a jungle lights himself on fire because he gets a nosebleed?
Baratie, isn't that the one where you get so hungry you eat yourself?
Baratie, isn't that the one where you throw away your dreams because a child has a dream?
Help me. Oh my god, what?
Isn't that the one where the guy infamously famous for only kicking immediately fights with his hands for 2 chapters before the author goes, "Oh shit, wouldn't he be cool if he didn't do that?"
Baratie, isn't that the one with the worst character ever introduced hangs out?
Don't say that about Sanji.
No,
No,
she's in it
Sanji's
girl.
amazing.
I'm not.
Girl.
Okay, fair. Okay, we get it. I missed the bit. I missed the bit.
Isn't that the one where the author condones child smoking?
Baratie, isn't that
Welcome, Internet, to the Drawk Show. If this is your first time here and you saw Melon's lovely face in the thumbnail and that's why you're here, we're doing a One Piece reread. We're going back through the series, bringing guests on to talk about arcs that are special to them. And number one Sanji fan, Melon, had to be here for Baratie. Melon, do you want to say hi to the people?
Hi, Peace Lady. I'm the scary pink lady, and I'm number one Sanji fan. It's me, MELONTEEE. They had to have me on because who else are you going to have on during Sanji's arc? I'll take all that credit. Thank you very much.
It only makes sense.
It only makes sense.
Reference.
We're so glad to have you here, Squishies. We're so glad to have Melon here. When we were going back through it, we were like, I wonder if Melon would do one pre-time skip because we know what Melon is picking post-time skip.
Yeah, we know. It's been known.
We all know. Goofy says it was stolen, but he expected it.
Goofy was also incredibly upset that I also took Baratie from him too. He was screaming at me, and I said, realistically, who else is going to give Baratie the respect it deserves? And he said, okay, well,
No
you
one.
got me there. No one else.
Tattoo elements. What have you got for me?
A swirl, obviously.
Gotta get that swirl.
A swirl, a chef hat.
Loving.
I think it's sword. I feel like we need to include Mihawk here.
You kind of do.
A fish. I think the chef hat keeps a duck. Yeah, because Zeff's original ship was a duck. I was thinking that too. And fire.
There's a lot of fire here.
Yeah, fire.
Something that I found kind of shocking, the writing quality change, the writing technique change, it feels like a zone shift. It feels like a key change. Like the quality of how well Oda seeds future plots, how well he intertwines things, how well he brings themes into the combat, how well he brings themes into the character conflicts and motivations, how well he understands what's going to be important to him later in the series. Holy shit, it all just like, it clicks at once. There's not this slow transition.
Exactly.
It's like,
This is
such a shift.
Rereading Baratie, my very first thought is, oh shit, this is why I immediately fell in love with One Piece. It was this chapter. Okay, let's do it. Let's do
it
this
for real.
arc.
Okay, for real, I don't think we have more bits. I think we have no more bits.
It.
This arc starts with Johnny and Yosuke, and I don't know, it's fine, it's cute. Introduces Mihawk before we meet him.
I like Johnny and Yosuke because I like the idea that Zoro actually wasn't a lonely bum before he met the Straw Hats. I like the fact that he had connections and had friends, and he wasn't just aimlessly wandering around without someone there.
We're so real for that. Because when they called him brother, I was like, oh, that's a nice feeling. Because every single time Luffy leaves now, Zoro immediately is like, oh, I think I'll start drinking and wandering and get alone. So it's nice to know that.
It's nice to know he had connections.
Yeah.
But you guys were talking about the Baratie has such like a shift in the writing, which of course I totally agree. And this is one of the reasons why I get so frustrated when people say One Piece gets good at Arlong Park. Arlong Park is fantastic, but the reason Arlong Park is so good is because of the build-up of the prior arcs. Literally, Arlong Park is a culmination of everything we have been taught about Luffy and the gathering of his crew before we get to Arlong Park. And Baratie is the biggest like snowball roll of all time to crash into Arlong Park. Like, it's just a fantastic arc that really shows Oda's writing capability at the beginning of One Piece.
You know, when they say that the innovation of something, like when somebody comes up with an idea or starts dancing in public, you know, it's really cool, but it's the second person who does it who actually makes it a thing. I was thinking about that when reading this because we had Zoro's background, and yeah, it was tragic and stuff, but we did the background. It was here when we did Sanji's background and we saw the Sanji beginning
Do you
and the
mean
story of
backstory?
starving on the island. Pardon? Yeah, the backstories. It was
Mm.
here that we realized, oh, backstories are going to be a thing and we're going to see how trauma informs lives. It
Yeah.
became the actual thing that made it something that we could, I hate to say look forward to, but look forward to. And
Yeah.
that we got to start to see how the way that people's trauma happened was going to inform who we were going to see in the
Yeah.
future.
From Romance Dawn, the very beginning, with like to Orange Town, you know, Nami, Buggies, or Luffy,
Yeah.
to Syrup Village, and then to Baratie. We are not just being introduced to these characters; we are also seeing how Luffy functions. When it came to Zoro, we were seeing how Luffy recruits people because of how he observes Zoro, how he
Mhm.
heard of Zoro's name. And then he was like, well, I'm going to go and check him out. We found out in that moment Luffy doesn't work on rumors. He will want to personally meet
Mm.
someone and decide for himself and see their heart for himself. Then we
Mhm.
get to Orange Town and we see him recruit Nami as well. And we see what Luffy will do for just random people because he was frustrated at what Buggy was doing in this place, right? And then
Mhm.
from there, we go to Syrup Village, and Syrup Village was a showing of why Luffy is helping these people, because he says to Kuro, and I remember this so well, I just don't want people to die. I don't want people I care about to die. He says that to Kuro, so now we know this is why he is fighting for islands that he doesn't even live on. He doesn't really have a personal connection with. He just doesn't want these people he cares about to die. Then we get to Baratie, and it all comes together in this is his ambition, this is his will, this is exactly where he gets this from. This is why he always stands back up no matter what. That is what Baratie was for. And then all of that comes into Arlong Park, combining every single thing that we know about Luffy to create Arlong Park. So I don't think Baratie invented that. Like, it didn't start
No,
the
no.
intertwining. It just did it so much
But
better
but
than the other arcs before it.
those notes to me are like thematic consistencies and like
Mm.
plot beats and things that inform each other. But this is where we start to see like plot points be better intertwined so that instead
Yep.
of it's like in sewing, there's stitches that are one at a time, but a stitch that goes back
Mm.
on itself is going to feel stronger. This is where Oda starts
Yep.
being the author whose stitches go back on themselves so that the thread
Mm.
is making multiple
I
passes
can't
and
believe you just
reinforcing
used
itself.
sewing and a lock stitch, and that's great, but I never would have ever, never.
Well, I'm full of surprises.
You are full. I was going to say the other thing that he does that strengthens both of your conversations is every single time we have also seen that Luffy, yeah, he doesn't want people to die. And yeah, he's going to stand up for people, but he is only going to stand up for people who stand up for themselves. Like, we start to see what it looks like that Luffy isn't going to be the leader who's like, let me hold your goddamn hand and take you and make you breathe your way through this like
Yep.
Whitebeard and Shanks do. He's going to be the leader that says, stand up and find your own strength. I can't make you care about your life more. I can't care about your life more than you care about your life.
Yeah,
That's why he
well,
forces Robin to say that she wants to live. That's
Yep.
why he forces the choices that he does in Wano. And so in this, we see that he hands off and just says, like, Mihawk is your quest. And when Mihawk decides to let Zoro live, then he makes that pledge to Luffy because Zoro could see the same thing in Luffy. I want a team member who stands up for themselves.
Yep. I will always say this about the Zoro and Mihawk fight, because a lot of people with the Baratie, they really focus on the Mihawk moment, right? Because it's like
mhm,
a
Yeah.
big moment. But something that I will always say is, in that moment, in my opinion, Zoro has been reborn as
Yes.
someone new. Because a lot of people will look at when Zoro was first recruited by Luffy, and Zoro says to Luffy, if you get in the way, I'm killing you. And a lot of
Yeah.
people still look at that and still go, oh, but he still said that. That was before Mihawk. We are
Yes.
now after Mihawk. Mihawk sliced him, and Zoro in that moment realized it can't just be ambition. He needs more than that. And there was an understanding that his crew and Luffy's dream adds on to him. It helps him. If he helps Luffy, Luffy helps him. Together, they can share a dream. That's
Yes.
why he holds up Wado, Kawina's sword, and says, Luffy, were you worried? I'll never lose again. Like,
Yeah.
you need a master swordsman to be the pirate king, correct? And Luffy is like, yep, that sounds good to me. Zoro's been reborn in that moment as a Straw Hat member. That is when I officially see him as a Straw Hat member, because that's when
interesting.
he's finally like but like intertwined his own dreams and own ambitions with Luffy's
So
and with the crew's. And to add on to that as well, that's why it's so important that Sanji sees that, because that's the whole point of
yeah,
Baratie. Sanji watching these crazy idiots with their ambitions and their dreams, not just with their dreams, but sharing them. That's a big, big part of Luffy's crew. They share their dreams together. And that whole scene with Mihawk and Zoro is literally Zoro becoming a Straw Hat member and actually indulging in these dreams as a
And I'd
family and
say
as a
that
crew.
I completely agree, but I saw it as the moment that Zoro discovered that he was already in love with Luffy, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
because the moment that Luffy is stolen by the bird, prior, Zoro immediately starts rowing as fast as he can to catch up to Luffy. He had no reason to. He could have gone in any direction. He could have done
No,
anything.
hang on,
Literally,
hang on. I
what?
disagree with that. Zoro's a man of his word. He had a reason to.
I agree
He
he's a
keeps
man of his
promises
word, but
very
when a
seriously.
when a bird steals a man right out of the sky and you can't even see him anymore, it feels like you lived up to your word as far as you can. And then he's like, I guess I'll go in that direction. And he's directionless and he gets lost. And yet he rows as hard as he can to find him. And I felt like it was almost like, when there's love at first sight, but you don't know how much you like that person yet. You just are like, I don't know why.
Mm.
I'm gonna do this thing. And it was in that moment when he was forged by fire with Mihawk, when he was like, shit, he's my captain.
Yeah.
so
I I
so
just I
I
don't
want to.
know, because I think it's a combination of Zoro's softness and Zoro's promise, because we know Zoro's soft at that point because of how he saved the little girl.
Oh, I just
So I wouldn't
realized I
say
haven't
he had
switched to
no
the drawing.
reason.
I haven't switched to the drawing. Oh my god. I misclicked. Yeah, thanks. I bet
We
why?
just
Oh,
stared at
the
your
filter's
face.
off. Just a sec. Something's up.
Oh,
Something's up
that
with the
drawing is
drawing.
Oh,
really bleak.
Oh, and Mel is
Such a
tiny.
bleak
We have
drawing.
a.
It's so
All right. I'm going to unify what you guys have been saying because I've had some observations that go between them. To me, a huge point of this arc, it's something that I brought up in our chapter review just now, is this thematic divide between people who are schemers, people who are upfront by their word. And in One Piece, the strength you get from being someone who is forward about who you are and what you want, honest with yourself and honest with others. Krieg is meant to be this force of deception and might,
mhm.
whereas Luffy gains this direct power from being someone who says what he wants, says what he believes in, won't take someone else saying they're going to take what he has, won't take someone else saying that they're a bigger deal than him, won't accept deception as valid, is just, nope, I'm here, this is who I am. And I think then it makes sense that we have the rebirth of Zoro as a character, because up to this point, his dream, his will was not something intertwined with Luffy as a
Yep.
captain. It was separate. It was an
Yep.
isolated motivation. And we see here
Yep.
the strength that he is going to gain going forwards from this moment, causing him to, and I think Mama is partially right that this is a realization, but the realization is what's important, because what makes
Yep.
you a Straw Hat, in my opinion, is the awareness of, yeah, my dream is intertwined with yours. His oath here, we are now getting a declaration of word. The thing that we're seeing makes you stronger, that I'm not going to lose for you because the King of the Pirates deserves the best. I won't lose, not for me, but for you. And that's the strength we get here. And we also see the strength Sanji gets being forced to intertwine his dream with Luffy by accepting
Yep.
that he's not actually indebted, Luffy freeing him from his shackles and forcing him to be aware. We also see the theme emerge that this forwardness gives you the ability to inspire others, and that is strength. Gin can't go
Yep.
through with killing Sanji, and because of that, Sanji is able to stop all of Krieg's men from attacking Luffy and killing him. Because,
Yep.
frankly, Luffy doesn't win this fight without that intercession, because there is still strength in numbers in One Piece, even if the big dogs are still stronger than everybody else.
Yep. And one of the reasons I also say that that moment with Zoro and Mihawk is Zoro's rebirth is because Zoro in that moment had accepted death.
Mhm.
He was
Mm.
about to die, and one of my absolute favorite panels, and it's something I've only recently noticed, is after Mihawk slashes him, he lets go of Wado as if he's letting go of Kawina, because this is it. He thinks he's dead, which is why I'm like, I don't think it's fair to say that like he didn't have no reason to help Luffy because he keeps promises. The fact he even carries Wado around with him to this extent is a showing of just how much a promise means to him. So the fact he's letting Wado go, accepting his death, that was the end in his mind. And it's just heartbreaking. So then holding up Wado and making a new declaration, a new promise, it's just a total new person to me. Like, this is quite literally, this is a new Zoro. This is a Straw Hat member now. But at least that's just how I saw the entirety of the Mihawk and Zoro fight. Especially Mihawk saying, "You're not dying here. This is not your place to die. You have to go out and find new things."
Which made me fall in love with Mihawk.
It
Yeah.
was
I
so
also
necessary.
saw it as being a moment, though, that he is reborn, but he doesn't leave his grief or his trauma behind. Because I see the sword as also kind of like an inability to let a person go. Like, there's a promise that I will be the best.
No, yeah,
but he has,
I think the same.
he has to take her sword as well, because it's like his trauma security blanket, where he's like, I can't actually let you go. You won't go. You can try and die, but I'm keeping you with me.
Yeah, I always say that Zoro is in a constant state of grieving all the time. Like, I do not think he's a very healthy person.
No.
I don't think he properly grieved Kuina, and he never really did properly grieve Kuina, which is why it's such a big deal that he holds up Wado specifically to make his declaration. Like, this is now added on to his grieving and his debt with Kuina.
Emotionally healthy or not, One Piece is largely a series about what makes a person's ambition succeed, what makes a person have the will to conquer those around them and reach the top. And I think there's also symbology in this oath to Luffy being sworn on Kuina's sword. Now he's carrying the will of two people. He's strengthened by the resolve of two people. He's carrying on more than just him and Kuina. He's adding Luffy to the weight behind this blade. And I do think at the end of the series, we're going to find out what makes a black blade is by having so much of yourself, so much of your will, your ambition, and the ambition of others that you carry poured into the one weapon, that it becomes infused with that dream and that belief and that will, which I think isn't the most original take, but I don't know, it's thematically salient, so that's what matters.
You don't have to worry about being original all the time. You can just make thematic.
I do believe in the hell tree, so I think I'm original enough.
I telling you right now, you're about to see yourself somebody with a patch on, and it's gonna be Odin.
You're fucking crazy for that one.
You know who I hate so much, and I liked
Pearl?
hating, and yeah, but that one's obvious. I mean, who doesn't hate Pearl? Iron Fist full body. But here was something that was really interesting for me when I went back and I was reading this again. I felt like I said that he gave us somebody at the ultimate end of the scale immediately with Mihawk. We were like hanging out and we were like, oh, we're all at this level and these people are this much stronger than us. And then Mihawk comes and is like hilarious. Oh, let me take out my little tiny mini sword and just kick your ass. And I was like, oh shit.
I think,
but Iron Fist full body, when I was looking at him this time, and I used to just hate him, this time I was like, oh, sweetheart, you're like the monster under the bed. That's all you are. Nothing. And I realized that he so scaled the people who were monsters and what monsters looked like and people who were evil, because this guy is like an original G racist. He's not. He's kind of just like a bad mayor. And so when I was looking at him, I was like, it's so interesting to see the people for whom I had deep hatred before and thought were so bad, and then watch the way that Oda scaled up the bad. And I was like, it's super interesting to see because now this guy, he's nothing to me, but he's kind of adorable.
And God, this is like, sorry, speaking of Zoro again, but also because Full Body and Mihawk, because all of Baratie is about strength in like multiple different areas, right?
Strength of character,
And
strength of military might.
Strength of character, strength of military might. God, Don Krieg says it over and over again. I even asked Arthur, does Don Krieg say military might in Japanese? Is that actually what he's saying? Yes, he is. I just had to double check that because the original Viz translations can be a bit like weird at the beginning, at the very beginning.
The older Viz translations are not as reliable,
Then they're not as good, right? So I had to double check on some things, but he definitely says military might over and over and over again. But this also goes into, because sorry, like I I'm talking about Zoro first because
Yeah,
Zoro's
no.
really, really important for the
Well,
arc.
it's like
But of
Thriller
course,
Bark.
everyone
Zoro
knows I'm
just
about to get into the bombshell.
It's
I'm
just
about
like
to get into
Thriller
the
Bark.
bombshell of
Zoro has a
Sanji.
way of having like 3 chapters that take over that conversation. Like that's his
Well,
that
because Zoro doesn't get his own arcs, but he gets different forms of growth per arc, and this is why it really frustrates me when people don't pay attention to him. Anyway, Zoro, I really, really, really like Zoro's idea of strength because it's so childish. His idea of strength is so incredibly childish at the very beginning of One Piece, especially at Baratie. And I always, always, always think about how he's in the East and in Syrup Village, he got 2 of his swords taken from him. And he says, "Oh, I'm not very good at one sword style." And I was like, you're aiming to be a master swordsman. You're aiming to fight Mihawk, and you can't even use one sword to its full extent. And you think you're big enough to be able to take on Mihawk.
And then later we see Lion Hunt or whatever become one of his best finishing moves, a one sword style technique. We see the development of like broadening his horizons, not going, well, I can't fight if 2 of my swords are gone.
Yeah, right. And it's just the biggest thing with Zoro is I really, because at first I'm like, why 3 swords? What an idiot. What a stupid thing to do. Because it's childish. He's literally doing the Don Craig thing of if I have more, I'm stronger. 3 swords, that's 3 times the strength, right? That's what he's doing, which is why when Mihawk fights him, he brings out that little dagger and he says, "Come at me, let's see what you can do." And Zoro looks pathetic. And I love what Mihawk says because Mihawk is like such heavy-handed swordplay, such brutish like swordsmanship. He's basically telling Zoro, "You're not a swordsman right now. You can use anything for this kind of fighting, but you're not a swordsman. This is not what a swordsman does. You're just a fucking like animal with 3 toys, basically.
You're a gorilla with sticks, my guy."
That's what he's saying. That's why it's so funny. And I swear this is on purpose that in Marineford, when Zoro gets chucked over to Mihawk, he has to fight the monkeys. He has to fight the monkeys with swords. And Mihawk is like, they're basically just apes with swords. And he basically says to Zoro, like you. Like he kind of indicates that Zoro has this animalistic, brutish idea of strength. That's not swordsmanship. That's not being a swordsman. So Mihawk brings into Zoro this idea of what swordsmanship is, what being a swordsman is. It's not pure strength. It's not brute strength. Even a tiny dagger can stop the most insane of, power forward people because you're actually using technique. This is what strength is. And I love that so much. And I love watching Zoro's idea of strength crumble before him because he's like, this is ridiculous. I can't even beat a toy.
literally one of, if not the first lines of dialogue Mihawk has in the series is swordsman without subtlety is nothing. You're just swinging around an iron bar. Paraphrasing, obviously. But like, that's like the first thing he says. He's like, "Oh, you're impressed by my subtlety with my big sword? Dumbass, dumb bitch."
Yeah.
Of course I'm subtle, motherfucker.
But I would agree with you that lots of people claim that Zoro didn't have a lot of growth throughout the series. But when you see Zoro now and you see Zoro then, you realize that he has spent this entire time, not knowing it, having King Hockey, but he has spent this entire time honing his hockey to be something that isn't just a slash and grab Leroy Jenkins moment, that he finally seems that it's within the quiet, within the pauses that you can see where the sword needs to go.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody who ever says any One Piece character on the crew doesn't have character development is self-reporting as someone who doesn't read into things, who doesn't pay attention really. Because the only thing is, One Piece isn't like My Hero Academia or Naruto or whatever, where you're going to have characters outright tell you the moment.
Fighting words.
Well, those series will regularly have moments where the character will outright say, "And now I'm over said issue because I'm acting in this way." And like, I think there are good things about those series. They don't have subtlety in their character development. And I think a lot of people watch One Piece, they read One Piece, and they don't see a character say, "And now I'm over this issue, so I can do this." And because of that, they think the characters aren't developing.
I will literally tell people there's clearly something going on in Zoro's head. There's an anxiety there. There's something in him that's bubbling that is stressing him out. He's like a boiling pot right now and he's about to boil over. I can see it. he is stressed out because he's starting to lash out more. The beginning of Elbaf is an idea of that. He's lashing out like crazy right now. There's something wrong with him right now. There's an anxiety, right? I will tell people that and they'll say no, because they're expecting Zoro to look into the camera and say, I'm feeling anxious right now. Like,
well, yeah,
they're expecting Zoro to look at us and say, I'm depressed. And it's like, he's not going to do that.
But we entirely see what that is. It's that he doesn't know how to control Conqueror's Haki, that he doesn't realize he has this power. Kaido says, oh, Conqueror's Haki. And he's like, no, and then he's like, Enma, why are you killing me? Odin could handle you. Well, I guess we'll just have to fight even though you're killing me. And now he's been all like weird and snappy and on edge. And then all of a sudden, Gabon is like, hey, you don't know what you're doing with that, do you? Looking
exactly. He literally said, you're no good right now. Shape the fuck up. And Zoro went, oh my God. He went, I'm sorry. And I just, like, the beginning of Elbaf was so telling to me because, like, we went from Egghead to Zoro being a dick. Like, he was a dick about Luffy crying over Vegapunk. Yes. And he was like, oh, he shouldn't cry over some old man. And that, to me, is clearly Zoro being frustrated at himself. When Zoro's frustrated at himself, or just in general, he's an asshole. He lashes out because he doesn't know what else to do. That's just what he does. That's a real man thing, by the way, as well. So he just lashes out. And he'll just be an asshole. Even Jinbei in that moment was like, whoa, calm down. Like, he knew Zoro was being too harsh. And now we get to Elbaf, and something that was really, really, really telling for me at the beginning of Elbaf was Zoro wasn't believing in Luffy. He wasn't believing in Luffy's read of people. He thought he had to baby him. Like, oh my God, Loki could be taking advantage of you. I'm going to believe the rumors over my own captain, even though Luffy's own instinct is what saved Zoro from rumors and recruited him back in the day. And watching Zoro not believe in Luffy's own instinct in people and instead believe in rumors was so telling to me that something's going on. He's overcompensating. He's going where he thinks he needs to go in a very harsh way, and he's acting out, like kicking Loki when he was injured because he's like, oh, I have to make sure everything's fine. And it's like, calm down a little, mate. You have to put a bit more trust in your captain right now. What's going on, you know? And now he's been called out by Gabon. And Gabon said to him, you need to be better than this. And that is so telling to me that he knows he's got a problem. And he's acting out.
And so I'm hoping this is another rebirth then, that he's going to have this moment. Gabon is going to point it out. He's going to leave something else behind. I'm hoping he leaves behind some of his trauma, fixes some of the grief of loss, and says to himself, I have to lean into this calmer part of me. I have to learn hockey. Because it's funny that we forgot. Because I said back when I didn't know about hockey, but I was predicting that each of them had something going on inside of them. I said, I don't know what it is, but here's what I'm seeing. Then when we have the 2-year gap, Luffy trains his hockey. No one else is training their well, Sanji is training it, and I believe putting hockey into his cooking, which everyone said was stupid, and I was
everyone
wrong
said was crazy until the knot happened, until the knot inside Emmett, and then everyone
was like, "Oh, if it can be in a knot, then I guess it could be in the cooking."
Oh, wow, okay.
So he was training it, but unaware as well. So everyone else has just been. They've been focused on Luffy and Luffy training his hockey and learning who he is, not a god, but learning what he's capable of. But the rest of his crew were unaware because they didn't have anyone saying, you have hockey, like you have a lot of it and you need to train it, because it's kind of like being a really intelligent person. If you don't use your mind will use you.
This makes me think about Luffy's arc that I talked about in the chapter review for the Four Emperors saga, and Zoro kind of going through his own version of that, where Luffy's arc was realizing, oh, saying I want to be the king of the pirates means saying I want to be someone great, and there's responsibility that comes with that. There is an obligation to be the right kind of person if I'm going to be that great. It comes with responsibility. I think Zoro is kind of in his own version of that, where he's close enough to being the world's greatest swordsman that he's kind of having to confront, there are things that come with that. You have to be a great man to be the greatest. Like, that is going to be part of this. And I think, like, the weird anxiety is kind of real, having to admit where he's at and that he is supposed to be at this level.
Yeah. I think what will help Zoro, because after Mihawk beats him in the Baratie, what I feel like happened with Zoro is he started shouldering a lot. And I think what Zoro needs to do is accept his crew as a whole now. I think what he needs is to accept I wanna say the help. I see Zoro and I see someone who is trying to shoulder everything himself, and it's interesting because I look at Mihawk and I see Mihawk, he's so lonely. He's a very lonely man,
Mm.
and
Yes.
I think there's an idea of Mihawk of something happened, I think he was betrayed, but I look at Mihawk and I see a lonely throne, and I see a man who is not happy with where he is. I don't think Mihawk is happy, and I feel like Zoro is trying to project that same idea and try and seek like that same path that Mihawk was on. But Zoro has a crew. Zoro has a family. Zoro has people he can rely and depend on. And I think he needs to have that realization that that's okay. Because I know One Piece's themes is depending on people and trusting people is a strength. It is a strong thing to be able to ask for help. That takes a lot of strength. That's literally what Arlong Park is. You need the strength to ask for help. That's what Whole Cake Island is as well for Sanji. Even in
And like
Wano itself, you had Sanji going, Robin, help me. Oda clearly believes asking for help is a strength. And I think Zoro just needs a moment like that. I think he needs to do that. I think he needs to realize I have my crew. I'm not on this journey alone. I'm allowed to actually rely on people for help to be a master swordsman, you know?
it makes me think of Oda because I think that Oda
Mm.
must have gone through periods of time where he looked at other manga authors who were alone and writing on their own. And there were the lone Mihawk kind of people, and then how he himself was bogged under all of his writing for so many years, and now he has a bigger crew, and he asks for help, and he takes a step back, and he says, "I'm going to burn myself out." So I think it's a very interesting thing that Oda has recognized this as being an important aspect of his characters and showing growth and strength, because I
Mm.
think it's probably because it's one of the things he's most proud of himself for.
Mm.
So something something in here. It obviously can't be the same situation as Sanji because Sanji's was also realizing that he can't both accept the weight of his virtues, which by the way is a huge, huge aspect of Baratie as well. You see this throughout that
Yeah.
you see Gin can't keep up on his virtues because Don Krieg
Yeah.
is not someone who is enough by their word to earn that commitment, and he betrays his
Yeah.
oath as much as it hurts him because of that. Sanji's moment is testing his virtues of never hitting a woman, never using his hands, and needing to rely on others to keep his virtues. With Zoro, I agree that asking for help feels important, but it's hard to imagine how it could be something like what happened with Sanji without it feeling like a repeat. And the only thing that comes to mind immediately, obviously not the only option, it's just that what comes to mind immediately is what people have been asking for, which is like, why is Luffy not teaching his crew how to use hockey? Well,
Yeah.
honestly, probably because they haven't asked for it. What if at some point, probably during a fight, Zoro just does ask, hey, how the fuck do you use Conqueror's hockey? What do I do with this? How does this work? I'm doing it by
And
accident.
please let it
It's
be
pouring out
hilarious.
of me. I'm literally dying from it. Luffy, what am I doing?
Yeah.
My my theory, my current I don't think this is gonna happen, but I was saying it would be so funny if because we're kind of derailing, but you know how the Holy Knights, you need Conqueror's Hockey to be able to do something against them. Because
Yeah.
Gaban obviously has it. Like I think anyone who says he hasn't, they're coping. But Gaban clearly has it. And he needs to use it to be able to take out the Holy Knights. Zoro and Sanji are currently both heading up to the Sun World right now to take on the Holy Knights. One of them currently has Conqueror's Hockey, and I was like, it'd be really, really funny if the way Zoro like unlocks it is he has Sanji going, hurry up! Get it out already! You gotta get your conquerors out! Because in Egghead, the reason Zoro used conquerors again is he heard Sanji say, oh my god, he's a liability. What the fuck is he doing against Lucci? So I'm going to crack up if what happens in Elbaf is Zoro's like, oh my god, I can't use it, I can't use it. And Sanji essentially kicks him in the ass and says, hurry up! Get that hockey out! We gotta kill these guys, you know?
People pointed out that there's this moment where Sanji reacts to something Gibbon is telling him. They are assuming it's him being like, "Oh, you have conquerors or you don't." But what I think we're gonna see is, I think why people are upset at the idea that Gibbon has it is because they're like, "No, Sanji can't have it. He doesn't have an ambition big enough." And I think what he's not the
Rude.
special chosen one. I think what we're going to see is Gibbon telling Sanji something like, "Kid, you don't have it yet." But that whole thing
Yeah.
where only a certain type of
Yeah.
person can be born with it is bullshit. if anyone
Yep.
pushes themselves to the point that they have put everything out there for whatever they believe in, that's what it
Yep.
is. Look at what your captain can do, because and that cuts back to Baratie. That cuts back
Yeah,
exactly to the
exactly.
moment
I
of
was gonna
Sanji having a
say.
mentor, an older version of him, point at Zoro
Yep.
and Luffy and say, "Look what it looks like to put everything on the line for your dream and believe that
Yep.
that's enough." Look, that's
Yeah.
you're not doing that. When have you ever done that? That's
Yeah.
what it takes. And I genuinely think that Gabon whispering in his ear was literally the exact moment we see with Zeff here, of someone saying,
Yeah.
those two know what it means to think all
Mhm.
they need is to put their dream on the table, to risk it all for their
Yeah.
dream. Do you?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't. That's Sanji's thing holding him back at this point, is he doesn't know
Yeah.
how to say, my dreams matter and I will risk it all for them.
But
Yeah.
I think there's also some telling of who can have Conqueror's Haki. Like, keep in mind, what Sanji has done with his attacks, being able to run on air,
Mhm.
all the different things that he's come up with on his own. Like, those are great moments that an average person can't achieve with an average
Yeah.
Haki. And so I
Yeah.
think we've already seen that he has the greatness inside him. He too
Yeah.
is going to discover more in himself. But
Yeah.
I really think, like, my greatest worry now is that we're not going to get to see the crew fulfill themselves the way that we got to see Luffy fulfill himself. They're having to do trial by fire with Haki, whereas Luffy literally took 2 years and strengthened himself. And I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying, are people trained without knowing the one thing that they could have trained? It'd be like not knowing you had the greatest weapon in your bag, and then you get into battle and you're like, well, shit, I don't know how to use this amazing weapon. And they're like, oh,
Mm.
well, start using it. And so I really hope that we do get to see our crew come into their fullest them in the time we have
Mhm.
left.
In all fairness, although that's not Conquerors with Luffy, that is what happened with Gear 5.
Mm.
That is something that he unlocked in the heat of battle. Gear
Agreed.
5
But he
for
knew what he was
Luffy
doing
is
with
like
Haki
Zoro's
at that
Conquerors
point.
right now.
Yeah.
And so I think because he knew what he was doing with Haki at that point, he was able to gear up in ways that he wouldn't have
Yep.
been able to. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I hope our
Yep.
crew get that same option.
Yep. Yep.
Their
And
Gear 5.
when it comes to the Baratie as well, when it comes to Sanji, there's something that I noticed on my reread that I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
When we are first introduced to Sanji, and when Don Craig is first fighting everyone, and when Gin holds a gun to Zeff's head, Sanji keeps saying, "No, I'd rather die. I'd rather die than let anything happen to the
Oh.
Baratie. I'd rather die than go anywhere, blah, blah, blah." Then we cut back to when we first see Sanji as a child, and he's the opposite of that. He's saying, "I can't die here. I won't die here. I refuse to die here." He has this like anger in him that is just so visceral of like, "I'm not letting these pirates kill me." And then of course after he meets Zeff, and Zeff sacrifices a lot for Sanji. Sanji believes Zeff sacrificed everything for him. Um Sanji then loses that same ambition to live. It's just gone because now it's been turned into, I must give myself up for someone else. I can't just live for myself anymore. And of course that can go into Whole Cake Island, but I'll leave that out. But
Yeah.
when it comes to like Sanji's like ambitions, what he's missing is he's missing, like Mama said, to live for himself. He doesn't
Mhm.
have that right now. And I really do think that's going to be the trigger to help him get Conquerors, because I
Well,
agree. I think he's got the ability. I
but
think he's got the power. I think it's all there. What he doesn't have is his own inner workings of himself. He doesn't have that figured out yet. He's not living for
but I
himself. He
think
still isn't.
I think there is this theme of carrying on others' will. So part of how I see that is, and I don't know if it'll be spelled out like this, because again, what I've said,
Mm,
One Piece, a lot of its building is through implication.
mm.
But like, is it just enough for you to be okay dying so Luffy can have his dream? Don't you want to see him be king of the pirates? Don't you want to be by his side
Yeah,
when he's king of the pirates?
yeah,
Don't you want to see your captain reach Laugh Tale? Like,
yeah,
and I don't think it'll be spelled out, but understanding that he should value that, like, because sure, he learned a
yeah,
lesson that he needs to ask for help from Whole Cake Island. But oh, and for the people in chat who are saying they're talking about Elbaf, the point of this
yeah,
reread is to see how this all is carried through the series. We're doing the reread
yeah.
to see how
Now,
these themes are paralleled in the future. And in Whole Cake, we don't see him actually, I think, ever appreciate what Luffy said, that I need you to be my chef. I need you to make it.
Yeah.
We see him willing to leave because he's like, oh, thank you for believing in me. But I still don't think he's internalized, oh, this matters.
What I was going to say was, for those who don't know, when I reread Baratie for this stream, I took like screenshots of all my favorite panels to be able to talk about them.
Love it.
When you said that we don't really like, what did you say? Like, when it comes to Sanji, like, with like, don't you want to see him be king of the pirates? Like,
Yes.
that's not really spelled out. In a way, I kind of disagree, because in Baratie, Sanji is telling Luffy, you cannot possibly understand like the weight I have on me. You cannot possibly understand the debt I have to Zeff.
Yeah.
And then Luffy grabs him and says, getting killed is no way to repay your debt. He didn't save your life so you could throw it away. It's being spelled out to him.
No,
but
I just meant in relation to Luffy's dream, because I think that is going to be part of it, of like dying for Luffy's ambition doesn't matter. Oh, you're right.
But that's it.
Yes, you're right. I get it.
Yes,
he's saying it about Zeff, but that does apply to once you're on Luffy's crew too.
It applies to everyone, exactly. Yes. So Sanji has been told, when people are saving your lives, when people are helping you, Luffy included, don't die because they saved you. You live because they saved you. That is such a powerful message, in my opinion. But Sanji is he's so self-hating that he still can't figure that out. He has to get there. Like, One Piece is a slow burn. So we're figuring out the crew have to slowly heal. They have to slowly learn, and they have to slowly heal. Sanji's still figuring that out. He still hasn't gotten there yet. But Luffy, more than anyone, is trying to tell him this.
I just realized something that I love here, and hear me out on this. Who is it? Who on the crew is it that always sees Usopp as useful and reminds Usopp that he has a place in the crew? Sanji, right?
Sanji, yeah.
We've all faced the fact that Sanji doesn't value his life. Who is the person who on Wano tells the suicidal samurai, cry and piss yourself if you need to, fight to live, be alive? Usopp values, he's depressed, he's struggling, he's afraid, and he values his own life more than anybody. And yet he'll risk himself, but he always tries to live. And it's kind of fun for the one guy who always sees the value in Usopp to be the guy who's lacking what Usopp has, the willing to give everything to survive, the willingness to keep going no matter what.
Yeah.
But can I say something about Sanji that I've been thinking, especially since I read Baratie again? I was like, I think the reason that we don't know Sanji's full capability, and I think it's funny because, Mel, when I came onto your show and I was sitting in a parking lot outside of a pharmacy, and then you were like, oh, Mama Drawk is here. We had just met each other. I didn't know that you were the Sanji stan. And so you were like, who's your favorite character? And I was like, well, it changes. Right now it's Sanji. And later on, when I found out how much you were into Sanji, I was like, I just came off as like a person trying to pander. But I always loved Sanji and felt like he was given a script he didn't want to read when we were in Thriller Bark. But when we were in this point and I was rereading it, I was thinking to myself, I don't think Sanji has a dream yet. And we all claim that seeing the all blue is his dream, and I don't disagree that seeing a mythical thing is a dream, but it's a dream in the way that I dream of going to Greece, or a dream in the way that I dream of going to Haida and seeing a particular dance. Like it means something and it's so important, but it isn't an essence. And I think the reason that we weren't allowed to know his dream yet is because we didn't know his backstory yet with his family, and the way that he was made to feel like his difference was so different that he couldn't be loved within his family or accepted for what he was other than by his mother. And so I am hoping now that I've reread Baratie, I am hoping that in Sanji's path, we now get to see him find his dream, and that it is more than just seeing the all blue. Could it be attached? Hell yeah. But I'm hoping that we get to see more to it.
I hope it's like a Luffy-like thing where the all blue is part of his dream. Like he wants a restaurant there. He wants to I
agree, but it's for healing people or for taking in people who have no direction or whatever the shit it ends up being. I just think there needs to be more to it that connects to his actual trauma. Because when he came up with the all blue, he was a tiny, tiny child who had never felt love. Then Zeff comes along and literally eats his own body so that he can be there to protect Sanji, stay alive to be the adult in the situation, but give Sanji the food that he needs. And so, how can Sanji, a person who felt like his family couldn't love him and he wasn't even worth keeping in a family that had everything, ever feel like he can repay a man who had nothing enough? And so, his real dream has to connect to that.
So
Yeah.
I have no idea what that could be. I want to briefly talk about the idea of dreams here because I think earlier I was thinking about the fact that like it does feel like we are being given Zoro's real dream and real motivation. It's interesting that Sanji's another character that
Yes.
we don't find out the true backstory of. And when I had that realization, I started to think, okay, I'm going to start reading this for how well Oda wrote the backstory later, because obviously I don't think it was all in mind right away when he wrote this. I don't think Sanji's full backstory. I don't know how sci-fi he wanted One Piece to be at that point. Was cloning supposed to be a thing? Who knows? But I don't think he had it all figured out. So I wanted to see how well did it fit in. And what I realized is you can't really judge how well it fits in because we don't know anything about Sanji from before the moment we first see him in the backstory. But the backstory later, everything later, was written with this in mind because Judge is just Dawn Krieg. He's a man in gilded armor who believes in weapons and numbers and military might, who believes he is everything, who goes to have dinner with someone who he intends to betray for power. Like, Dawn Krieg and Judge are just the same guy.
Yeah. That's the reason I love Whole Cake Island so much, because it makes me go back on Baratie and read it and go, oh my God, like little Sanji before meeting Zeff saying, no, I have to live. I have to live. And if you read that scene just like after he got like pushed out by Reiju, and Reiju was saying, you will meet people on the sea, you'll meet them. Little Sanji has this ambition. I have to live, even if it's just to spite the man that disowned me. I have to live, right? And then he meets Zeff, and then he meets someone who gives everything for him. And then at that point, exactly. And then at that point, Sanji just, because I always say there's such a scene in Baratie and it breaks my heart where he says to Zeff, but why did you do this to me? I gave you no reason to be kind to me. And I'll always say it's such a tell that a child is saying, why are you being kind to me? Only a horribly broken child will ask an adult, why are you being kind to me? Like, so it's like watching these two scenes back to back. It's like, it's no wonder why Sanji threw everything for Zeff, away everything for Zeff. He gave everything to Zeff because he couldn't understand just anyone caring about him to this extent. He just didn't understand why anyone would ever give up anything for him. So why would he chase his own dreams when his dreams feel like nothing? They feel like they're useless for who he is. Like he just feels useless overall.
Well, and there's something interesting to that where it's like seeing what Zeff gave to him, gave for him, puts his dream in perspective in a way that he decides, oh, that's childish. Those guys were right. Which is very funny compared to what you were saying about Zoro having a dream and a method of pursuing it and a belief that is objectively childish and still fully believing in it with everything. And it's sort of interesting to think then they're sort of learning opposite lessons in a way.
Yeah. No, Sanji, I love Sanji. It has to happen. I love Sanji. One of the reasons I love Sanji so dearly, and I think one of the reasons I attach to him so fast is I'm seeing a kid who is trying to grow up as fast as possible, and it's just heartbreaking because when he joined the Baratie, I think it's very specific that there is no one his age here. No one. He is by far the youngest person who works at the Baratie. He is surrounded by adults, stinky, sweaty, hairy men, all that are like 2 times, 3 times his age, you know? And they drink and they smoke. And then you have Sanji at, I think, 13 or 12. He started smoking and he's like, look, I'm a man now. He started wearing suits at like 14 or something. He started speaking the same way Zeff and the other cooks were speaking. One of my favorite scenes ever is when he hears Zoro talking, like he's just met them and he hears Zoro talking about like, I'm going to be a master swordsman. And Sanji is like, that's stupid. What a stupid dream. You're going to get yourself killed. And Zoro says, yeah, I'm stupid, but it's my dream. I'm allowed to call me stupid for it. And Sanji says, you know, what a stupid kid. He calls them kids. He calls Zoro a kid. He calls Luffy a kid. Zoro is his age. Luffy is 2 years younger than him. He's trying so hard to embody an adult and be an adult because he believes his own dream is so childish and he gets made fun of for it all the time, that he's trying to be jaded and become just what he thinks a realistic adult should be, which is why watching him be with the Straw Hats, it's so like watching Sanji say to Luffy, do you know about the All Blue? And his eyes go wide and there's sparkles behind him. His childlikeness is still in there. His whimsy and wonder is still in there. He was just trying he's trying so hard to bury all that down because he thinks he needs to be realistic. And that's the heartbreaking thing about him and Zeff. Zeff doesn't want him to be realistic. He wants him to chase his dreams. It really, really breaks his heart. And one of my other absolute favorite panels in the Baratie, I adore it dearly, is when Sanji, it's a panel of Sanji saying, this ship is the geezer's pride and joy, and the geezer is Zeff, and it's just Sanji. There's nothing behind him. It's just pure white. And it's like, Sanji, you are Zeff's pride and joy. You've always been Zeff's pride and joy. And he doesn't understand that because he thinks he's so useless. Every time Zeff calls him a child or a baby, that's not because he's trying to demean Sanji and make fun of Sanji. It's because he loves Sanji. He loves him so dearly. He loves that Sanji has this childish dream. He loves that they share the same ambition. And he doesn't want Sanji to let that go. So Zeff watching Sanji try and protect the Baratie, give his life to Baratie, that breaks Zeff's heart so much because he just wants to see this kid who he loves so much more than anything go and chase his childish dreams and actually be the whimsical pirate that he knows Sanji wants to be. But they're at opposites.
But what's interesting is he's not saying don't risk yourself, don't put it all out there, but he's saying do it for you, do it for what you believe in, do it for your values. Yeah. Don't decide the things around me are what you should be fighting for. Look at these two fucking idiots. Look at these dumbasses. They are fulfilled. They are doing it for them. They have their beliefs and they are putting everything on the line for it. You call them stupid? Be like them. Why can't you be more like the neighbor's kids?
There's a panel where he says, I'm not going to be killed in a place like this by you crap pirates.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how before, when everyone wanted him dead, pirates wanted him dead, his family wanted him dead, he's oppositionally defiant. If you want him dead, he'll live. But the minute somebody wants him to have life, now he doesn't have anything to fight against. He requires people to pit against him in order to find his own life. And so the minute somebody is like, I love you and I want you to have life, he's like, no, that's not a real thing. And so you could see him trying to lean into his Straw Hat Pirates, and a part of him is always held slightly back, which is why Whole Cake is so amazing, because even if he's not all the way there, he finally understands when Luffy is like, I will sit my ass here and starve. I will gain no nutrition. I will fight no fight without your food. And it's this time that Sanji gets to see once again somebody like Zeff, who's like, understand me. I love you for who you are, and I want you to live for you. So I'm looking forward to Sanji because I always found his story to be one of the most heartbreaking. And like everyone, when we do like Kuma's heart story, we're always like, that's the worst.
I mean,
but
there's
something so sad. It is terrible. It is. But there's something so sad about a child who only feels the will to live when others feel that he should die. There is something so ultimately sad about needing people to be against you to feel like you're worth living. And I still see it in him all the way up to this day. And even though he's on the Pirates now, Otis changed his character in ways. Like somebody said it, which was really funny. I miss him calling everything crap. So do I. Before the 2-year thing, when he did the Le Crap restaurant, he was starting to have this fun side to him where he was doing a lot of like silly things. And I'm hoping that that's going to come back again. I'm hoping that's what we're going to have more of him being ridiculous and fun and funny.
I always saw that as more because Sanji's with the Straw Hats now. He's less like hostile. Because when he's like swearing in the ways that he swears, it's like to me that's like a defense mechanism of like his person, of like how he just always has to fight back, you know? But
Does
now
it
that
in
he's with the Straw
Alabasta
Hats,
and Little Garden, and then a little
yeah,
while later, like when he's talking to other one, he's like, welcome to the Le Crap restaurant.
mm,
How can I help you?
yeah,
Or when he calls and does the thing.
I
I'm sorry.
just
I started to think about Little Garden and I just can't stop thinking about Zoro trying
Well,
to get
I
the
frozen in
candle.
so people
his
people have
position.
observed that he's not being jokey and that Zoro's not being jokey, but that's also an arc that we've seen Luffy go through, where it's
Mm,
this need to be serious, to be strong enough to actually be free, and then Gear 5th like, Gear 4th is his most serious transformation. It looks silly but badass. He's got the angry eyes, he has this focused demeanor, and then Gear 5th happens, and Luffy's like, "Oh, I'm on top, I can be goofy and playful." And I think when you look at Gabon and Silver's Rayleigh, they are able to be jovial and silly in a way that at this point Zoro and Sanji aren't. And I think that is still the arc. I actually think they are going to come around to being at a place of comfort where we're going to see
mm,
more of that come out. I do agree that a lot of the cursing I think is from a place of hostility, Melon, but I do think some of the
mm,
playfulness of Sanji is missing at the moment. But I don't think that's a permanent change. I just think that's where he's at in his arc.
yeah.
The same way Luffy did get more serious when he needed
Hoping he
to.
comes back to the other
Well, I
side.
mean, to be fair, he has just discovered he's got mutating germa genes, and I'm sure that's weighing on him. Like, I can't imagine
Yeah.
him wanting to have too much
100%.
of a laugh these days with what's going on inside of him.
I'm hoping that we're gonna have that now that you've said that, Drawk. I'm hoping we're gonna have that kind of character arc for a lot of our people
Mm,
because you know who almost never gets to be silly is Nami. She's had to be a goddamn mom since she was tiny and she was abandoned in the war and before she was picked up by her mom. Then her mom got
The
shot in the face in
the
front of her
issue
and then she
is
was on the way to the town.
Zoro,
And so
Sanji, and
I
Luffy often have arcs that parallel each other. They often have development that you can kind of overlay,
yeah,
just their personalities
mm,
interact with those arcs differently. And the rest of
yeah.
the crew seem to get development very tailored to them.
mm. And also when it comes to Zoro and Sanji as well, they were also made to parallel each other. Like,
Yeah.
they
Yes,
were
they're
made
brothers.
for that. That's the point of like
Lab
them,
designed.
like
Yes,
exactly, because Sanji, like, this really peeves me when people say, "Oh, Luffy's like the reason Sanji joined." I always say it's Luffy
no,
and Zoro that
Yep.
got Sanji to join. When Sanji saves Luffy from the water, he doesn't just think, "Oh my god, Luffy's crazy." He thinks first one, now the other. What is with these crazy guys? Zoro impacted him so greatly, and I always thought it was very interesting that Oda made Sanji and Zoro the exact same age. Even in SBS, someone said to Oda, "How old is Sanji?" And he said, "Same as Zoro, he's 19." And I was like, "Okay, so it's begun." He's already started paralleling them, and he knows he's doing that. But one of my absolute favorite like panels, constant panels, like in Baratie is every time Zeff smiles. Every time Zeff smiles, because it's usually Zoro or Luffy saying something stupid or saying something ridiculous about their dreams,
yeah,
and Sanji's going, "Oh, blah, blah," and then we always see Zeff and he's smiling. Because the way the way I say Baratie is, I say Baratie is basically Zeff finding a man for Sanji to run off with. Like, Zeff has given Luffy his blessing to take his son, basically. That's what
yeah,
Baratie is. Zeff loves Luffy. Zeff even says, whether Luffy wins or loses, I admire a man like Luffy, because
yes,
he thinks Luffy is the perfect person for Sanji, just perfect. And he thought Zoro was the perfect person for Sanji as well, because they're watching him take on Mihawk. And an incredibly important line to me is because Oda makes it so specific that Sanji is watching this. There are so many panels of Sanji just observing this fight until Sanji eventually breaks and says, "Abandon your dream. Abandon your stupid dream. Like, you're putting your life on the line for it. Just abandon it." And of course, Sanji's yelling this because he had to abandon his dream, or he felt he had to abandon his dream. He just doesn't understand like what he's seeing. It's overwhelming to him. So seeing all these panels of Zeff just smiling because Sanji is watching Luffy and Zoro be like bold and brash and just go for it. It's just like those little interactions are what made me read Baratie and go, "Oh, the writing's actually really good. Oda's purposely not telling us everything. We're meant to be really observing what's happening here, and we're meant to look at every panel to see everyone's reactions to understand why people are saying things or thinking the things they are, you know? But just from the get-go, it was just Sanji clearly had something holding him back, and Zeff was trying to find the people that could help him bring it out of him, and that was Zoro and Luffy specifically.
And he knew he had to do it because he says, the all blue exists when the time comes, head to the Grand Line. We couldn't
Yeah.
find it years ago, but what I saw there made me believe. I don't feel like being a pirate without them. They didn't believe in all blue, but they were good-hearted fools. And then the next page he said, if only there was a restaurant smack in the middle of the ocean. A restaurant? That's right. If I get off this rock, I'm going to build it if it's the last thing I ever do. And he says, in this age of pirates, I may be the only man who could run a grub shop like that. And he says, okay, I'll help you. Just don't die.
Just don't die.
Sanji pins his future and his dreams. It goes switch. We watch him just yin and yang his dreams, and his dreams become Zeff's. And in that moment, he solidifies, my dream is whatever Zeff wants. As long as he doesn't die, I will take on his dream.
And
so you can see why for Zeff, he'd be like, for fuck's sake, what is it going to take to let you have your own dream again? And so for him, Luffy was this like, oh, thank God, take him and get him away from me. Literally cut the apron strings. This kid needs to live for himself, and he doesn't know how.
And I do think the saddest part is I think Sanji's done the same thing again. But now he's done it with Luffy and Zoro. And the reason I add Zoro into this is because, and I always think about the scene in Thriller Bark when Zoro's like giving up his life, right, for Luffy. And then Sanji pops in and he says, what about your dreams to Zoro? What about being a master swordsman? And it's like, and I feel Zoro's anger in that moment because, of course, then the question is, what about yours? Like, why are you putting Zoro's dream above your own life? What in the world are you doing? He's doing the exact same thing he did to Zeff. He's now doing it to Luffy and Zoro because one of the reasons he even left in Whole Cake Island is because he didn't want to get Luffy and the crew involved in his mess. He'd rather die. But it's
which
like,
says how little he values himself because he was part of Luffy being like, I will declare war on literally the entire world, and somehow thinks an emperor is worse than that? Somehow thinks Big Mom is worse than literally everybody?
Yeah.
Sorry for talking over you. Just wanted to add.
It says how much Zoro loves Sanji now when you look at Thriller Bark where nothing happened and Sanji tries to give himself up for Luffy. Sanji tries to take on the burden that Kuma is going to give him. And Zoro is like, no, be here for our captain. Your burden is to live. Your burden is to survive and dream. I'm the one who's going to take this on. And for Sanji, who has always been told your value comes only when somebody doesn't want you to live, it was this real brotherly moment between them when Zoro is like, too bad, I want you to live.
I love that scene because I love the choice that Oda made to not show Zoro's face. And to not show his expression because I feel that Zoro was just angry, just upset because Sanji said, find another cook. Like, it's that simple, you know, like, just replace me. Imagine someone part of your family who you love so dearly is saying, just get like another person to join the family, just replace me. You'd be infuriated, would you not? You'd just be enraged at hearing that. Like, why do you ever think you could be replaced that easily? It's just unbelievable to me.
But I think the relationship between Zoro and Sanji is so interesting because in my opinion, Zoro obviously has real love for Sanji. They both have real love for each other. But I think the rivalry is genuinely more playful from Sanji's perspective to Zoro than vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think tons of Sanji's flaws and even his virtues piss Zoro off. I think his lack of value for himself, the harm he causes people who love him by not regarding himself well enough. And beyond that, honestly, I think Zoro carries Kuina's sword in his mouth. He carries Kuina's will with him. I think the fact that he refuses to fight women pisses him off because he's like, Kuina would hate you. Kuina would despise you. Kuina would see you as
Mm.
pitying her, and she would hate you, and I think a
Mm.
little bit of that is always carried with them of like, the person I respected most in the world would despise the way you see things. She would hate the way you look down on her implicitly. And
Mm.
there's obviously been
Or
moments
then
like
the
with Monet
Robin
where
moment.
Zoro does the same, but I still think he is able to acknowledge the contempt of like looking down on all women all the time.
Except for the Robin moment when we have him call out, "Robin, help me." And you
Yep.
realize that there's just a lot more depth going on, that you
And
see Sanji, the only kindness that he received at any point of his childhood was from his mom. That's it. And
but
he
I
I
was
had to
gonna
think that was the moment that is the real growth with Sanji and how he treats women, was taking women seriously as combatants
I
without breaking his oath.
but
agree.
I was gonna say though, I think something's going I think you're getting something wrong there because
Okay.
Sanji doesn't fight women, yes, but he doesn't look down on women.
I
He believes women are incredibly
no,
capable.
I
He
think he
personally doesn't
doesn't.
fight women, but he doesn't
Yes.
care if other people fight women. And look,
Mhm.
the thing is, I believe Oda's writing it like that. And the thing is, you and I can see it as okay, but that's not really it. But I'm still trying to see it from the way Oda's trying to write it, which is basically
That's
a boomer
fair.
old man,
I
right? So it's like, I
it's
don't
No,
think
he's Gen
Sanji,
Z.
well, I
like,
don't think
Sanji
These are
he's
sees
young
women as
Gen X.
warriors.
to be I
Sanji
don't
sees women as warriors, he sees them as fighters, he does not look down on them. The
but
issue with
I think
Zoro is he isn't capable of
mhm.
seeing a woman as a warrior. That's what the issue with Punk Hazard was.
I think though Kuina would look down on Sanji's view on women. Like whether
Oh,
or
she
not
would, yeah.
yeah. And granted, I think Kuina would also look down on the way that Zoro reacts to women, where he held back against Monet instead of killing her and nearly got everybody killed. Like, nearly caused Punk Hazard to be the end of the Straw Hats' journey because he wasn't able to take it seriously. I want to say, again, you see interest in Wano very clearly. Sanji does see women as capable, but I do think Kuina would hate his outlook. I think she'd be like, actually,
Mm.
fuck you. Fight me, bitch. Fight me.
Kuina would not like Sanji's outlook, but there's definitely a fundamental difference in I still
Yes.
see you as a warrior and a fighter. I just personally am not fighting you because of what has been beaten into me compared to Zoro. Like, I
Yeah.
just think women are below me in strength and I do not see them as a warrior. Like, Tashigi straight up said that to him. She said, "You don't see me as like a swordsman or a warrior."
And
And
it's
that
tough to
pisses me
say
off.
if he really doesn't, or if it's just like, oh, weird holding back because I feel weird thinking about Kuina. But by having that thought, regardless, you're kind of disrespecting Kuina.
Yeah, I think it's just Zoro was raised by an incredibly sexist man, and he's
You know
accidentally
what?
embodied that belief.
I think that is
But
fair
also,
because
when
Kuina's
when when
dad
you
was
have a
pretty much like, yeah, she wouldn't have been world's greatest swordsman. That sure is sad.
right. But also, when you have a bestie and an idol, because Kuina was Zoro's goal, and that
Yeah.
person breaks down in front of you and says, "You're a man, you'll be stronger than me." How can you not internalize that and embody that as a
Yeah.
child, right? That would have been kind of traumatizing for Zoro to hear. That would have messed him up to hear your idol say, "You're going to be stronger than me because you're a man and I'm a woman." And it's like, how can Zoro not embody that even
Mhm.
by accident? You know,
I
like in
I
my
do
opinion,
agree.
that's a showing this was taught. This was not something that he ever believed, but he was taught this, and now he's stuck with this, and he has to deprogram himself from thinking like this.
But I do think you still see moments where Kuina's outlook is reflected through Zoro, like how pissed he
Yeah.
gets at King when King is like, I have inherently superior genetic qualities, so you can't win. And Zoro's like, hate that shit. I hate when people say this. He does it on Fishman Island too, where they're like, well, we're stronger than you inherently, biologically, so a win. And Zoro's like, actually,
Mm,
fuck you. That's a dumb outlook. You suck. So I think there is still
yeah.
that like contempt for the idea that biological differences make the difference entirely. But I do think you're right that he's internalized it too, because I think Oda writes
Mm.
subtlety.
Because we're talking about strength as well, because
Yeah.
Baratie, like I said, we are saying is all about strength. One of my
Very much.
favorite parts of Baratie and parts of Sanji specifically is the strength of kindness and
Mm,
how much that is. Because I adore the way Oda writes Sanji's kindness and writes kindness in general, because so many people think Sanji is a contradiction. That how can you write a character like Sanji who is supposedly kind when he acts the way he does, when he's violent the way he is, when he's like
mhm,
kind of a dickhead as well? And it's like, because kindness is not the way it's presented in children's shows in One Piece.
mhm.
Kindness is not Fluttershy from My Little Pony. It's not being a pushover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kindness isn't like it's not Oda's not presenting it in the most like childish way ever. He's presenting kindness as kindness is a choice. Your
Yes.
strength is to do the kind thing. Sanji full well knows if he feeds Gin, if he feeds Don Craig's crew, there could be repercussions because they're gonna hurt him. They're gonna be full and they're gonna try and kill him. That's the strength of his kindness. He knows there's going to be repercussions, but he chooses to still be kind. That is Sanji's strength. So when people say, I don't see Sanji as being kind, Sanji's just not a pushover. But he is incredibly kind simply because he will always choose the kind path, even if it means this could be a bad thing for him. But he still wants to be kind.
I think another thing that's exemplified by his and Zeff's choice is a ton of Sanji's arc, and honestly Zoro's, is the idea of living by your virtues, what you see as virtuous. And I think a constant theme in One Piece is that it's not dishonest. It's not like, yeah, it's always easy and it's always objectively right to follow by your virtues. It's shown to be a hard thing. His values, not hitting women, feeding the hungry, get them in trouble all the time. There wasn't the magical moment everyone wanted where feeding Big Mom saved everybody and she went, wow, Sanji, you're such a good chef that I'm going to join the Grand Fleet. No, she still wants to kill Luffy, goes on a vengeance quest. It was objectively a dangerous thing to do, but that's the cost of living by your virtues. But coinciding that, it's the reason Gin can't kill him. It's the reason that Gin betrays them. It's what inspires people, the virtue he respects and his kindness. Like, that's what saves the day in the end.
Like, that it was the first time in my life that anybody was
so kind to me.
I can't kill this man.
I can't. I love that panel. I can't kill this man. And then he says to Don Craig, is there any way, any possible way that this ship can possibly be spared? Like, he's going against his own belief in Don Craig and his own, like, respect, or not respect, but his own, like, following of Don Craig because of how Sanji treated him with such kindness. Because he's just never, ever had that before.
He says, I respect your strength and I thank you. I would never betray you and I regret nothing that I've done in your service, but this is the one person that I cannot kill, which really exemplifies that. He says that this ship could be possibly spared, which really exemplifies how much Oda is trying to say what a strength kindness is, what a difficult choice it could be made, but also what a strength it is to admit when a kindness has been done for you.
Yeah.
And so we see the exact story almost of Sanji happening for him, because Sanji gave up his life to be on this boat and repay a debt to Crap Chef. And he is saying, I owe this man a debt. I owe this man a debt. He fed me when I was going to starve, and I won't take advantage of that. So I will go against my vow to you, and I will ask that you spare the ship.
And there's also something there of, like, this is Sanji in general, how a kindness can change or reveal a true person, like what's really beneath them. Because tons of times throughout One Piece, Sanji will be kind to someone, and that will usually lift the mask that they are wearing, that like the stone wall that they've put up. Sanji's kindness greatly helps them be able to be more vulnerable, because Gin, they say that he's like a monster, he's a demon. They say he'll torture a man to death, heedless of his screams, and they say the demon man doesn't have an ounce of mercy. But we then see Sanji be kind to him, and suddenly he has an ounce of mercy. And that happens multiple times in One Piece. The biggest one is Pudding, of course, like Pudding in Whole Cake Island. She was wearing a mask all the time. Then suddenly Sanji shows a kindness to her and the mask drops. The same thing happens with Viola.
I was about to say with Viola, where they're like, she's cruel, capricious, she'd betray her own family, and then betrays the Doflamingo family because of the kindness.
I still want Sanji and Pudding to get together.
They're very cute.
I love them together. I know, but I love them.
And there was sorry, there was also one thing I forgot to add. When we said Drawk, I think you said that Sanji's playfulness with Zoro is like more playful on Sanji's side than Zoro's side. One of my favorite things about Baratie, there are so many favorite things, is we are seeing how Sanji is with people he cares about. We are seeing how he acts with people he loves. Because when the Baratie starts, it's constant of all the chefs saying Sanji doesn't like Zeff. Sanji doesn't like Zeff. He always gets angry at Zeff. He hates Zeff. He tries to go against Zeff all the time. Then we get revealed the past, and I think it's is it Kane? Is that how you say his name? Patty and Kane, or is it Khan? I think it's
I
Kane,
think
right?
carne is how it would be because it's French for meat, right? But
Yeah. So Kane says, "Who knew that Zeff and Sanji, the two who like fight like cats and dogs, actually have this very deep bond with each other?" And I'm like, "Gee, who else can that possibly apply to in
I
Sanji's life on the
Yes.
crew?
I will
Like, who
say
else does he fight with like cats and dogs, but he has such a deep bond with, you know? And
this
that is
does highlight
Zoro."
this does highlight that these chefs have an incredible lack of emotional intelligence. They show up for a job. The only two people here are the old man and this kid who's not his kid he's taking care of. And they assume these two hate each other. That's why he's raising
Yeah.
this child.
He hates him. And one of my favorite things ever is Zeff and Sanji's relationship is so similar to Zoro and Sanji's. They're just incredibly similar. The
Yep.
nicknames, the cat fighting,
Oh my
the
god.
sparring, it's
Yeah.
all the same. And it's like, this
Absolutely
is such a
identical, you're right.
this is such a clear indication of how much Sanji likes this guy. That he's like treating Zoro the way he treats Zeff.
Oh my god. I just
That
had a
they
Gives us a good
realization.
like
idea of
each
how
other.
Zoro feels about him as well, because obviously we've already been given a template for this, so we're supposed to know that they have an important relationship because we have already been told that
Right?
Zeff adores Sanji.
Yeah, because one of my favorite things as well when we get to Arlong Park, the second we get to Arlong Park, the first thing Sanji does is go up to Zoro and say, "Haha, you lost against Mihawk." That's the first thing he does. That is the first thing he says to Zoro. He like makes fun of him, and it's like, you clearly like want to form a bond with this guy, but you don't know how because you're incredibly socially stunted. Hanging
I just
around
had
all these old men.
I just had a sad realization. So many people want Scopper Gibbon to have a good relationship with Sanji because they're parallels, right? But Rayleigh's relationship with Luffy is what you'd expect from a Zoro parallel to Luffy, being like, yeah, I love you, kid. You're my captain spirit. You're amazing. Way to go, kid. And then he looks at Zoro and is like, good job, right hand manning. Because Zoro would do that to Zoro. Zoro would be like, hey, bud, you're awesome. I think Scopper Gibbon and Sanji can't have a good relationship because Sanji's relationship to himself is not good.
I think they can have a good relationship only because I don't look, I'm one of the only people out here saying this. I don't one-to-one the Roger Pirates with the Straw Hats.
They're
I don't
not
think
one-to-one.
Gabon is
They're different people. You have to admit the parallels are there on purpose.
No, the parallels are there on purpose, but my parallels are Gabon and Rayleigh are a mix of Zoro and Sanji together.
Interesting. Hit me up
Like
with this. Hit me up
Sanji
with
is
this.
not
Explain this
just
to me.
Gabon. Well, because here's the thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So many people say Zoro and Rayleigh act the same way. I totally disagree. I don't see it simply because Rayleigh's not an idiot. Rayleigh's not an idiot. Rayleigh even says to like Zoro's an idiot. He says, "I don't know Zoro's going to figure this out because he looks like he's a dum dum," right? And then you have Gabon when he fights people. The way he fights people is so similar to Zoro. He's got the smirk on. He's swinging his two axes. Even his
You are
moves
right.
are similar
You're
to
raising
Zoro's.
some points here
Like
that
Gabon has a
Gabon's
similar
more of a dummy.
personality. Right, Gabon has a similar personality to Sanji, but his ways of fighting feel like a lot more like Zoro to me. And also the way he's reprimanding, the way
He's
Zoro
also just
was reprimanding Luffy.
he's also he's more of just like a carefree dummy. Now Rayleigh does have the washed up drunk because he doesn't have anything to do, so he's
Yeah.
just hanging out thing that is absolutely Zoro.
Yeah.
And whenever Zoro doesn't have anything to do, he gets drunk immediately.
But it's like when we first get introduced to Rayleigh, I always say this. So Rayleigh, like I looked at Rayleigh and the second we were introduced to him, I was like, okay, so he's a Zoro Sanji mix. He's got the scar in his eye, right? And he drinks. But then we get introduced to him and he says, "I love young women." And I was like, okay, so he's supposed to be a combination of the two of them. Like he says he loves women when we first meet him. He used to be a blonde. He's got leg hair as well. People say, "Oh, that's so shallow," as if comparing Rayleigh's alcoholicness is also not as shallow, as it is to Zoro.
I've never
So
thought
it's
about
like
it that way, but I do think there's a point here.
Yeah, and then you have Rayleigh calling Zoro an idiot. He says he looks like an idiot, and it's like that is fucking something Sanji would say. And it's like every time people one-to-one Rayleigh with Zoro and Gabon with Sanji, I'm like, I think they're meant to be a mix. I see a pure mix because I think Oda's doing that on purpose because he doesn't want us to purely one-to-one these characters. I think he wants us to look at the Wings of the Pirate King and then look at Zoro and Sanji and go, okay, they're just a whole bizarro mix and mash of each other.
You know what? I'll give it to you. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I do think that they work well as thinking of they're a mix of traits. They're a bundle of what makes them.
Also, I have to add, someone just said it. First time we see Rayleigh ever fight anyone is Kizaru. The first thing he does is kick Kizaru. Then he pulls out a sword. Like, it's just, it feels like it's all there to me.
Something that's really interesting about Sanji too and Baratie, and when I looked back and started to, I realized, like, I think Baratie is when I fell in love. I thought that Arlong Park was really good. I loved when we went to Logtown. But Baratie, when they're sitting on the cliff, and the picture that you drew for me that time, where they're sitting on the cliff and looking out to sea and looking at dreams collide and sacrifice and love, how can you not fall in love with this? And how can not Sanji not have a special place in your heart? But Sanji is the heart of the crew, because we always talk about how feeding people, that's the kitchen becomes the heart of a home. It's where you feed people and you keep them alive. And he tailors to each of his crewmates tests and tastes, and he puts himself between danger. He's kind of an emotional backbone, even though he himself doesn't get that emotional reward. He gets it from other people feeling strength. And I kept wondering what the Baratie was going to look like when Sanji left, because you can feel that he's also Zeff's heart, and that made Zeff go from being. He made Zeff from just going from being this pirate to, he met this boy, he saw him clinging to the food, saying that he wanted to live. He had the same reaction to Sanji that Luffy has to somebody when they have the will to live and want to self-actualize. He had that same reaction, but he made Zeff a father. And Zeff was a father figure in a way that he never intended to be, or a father that Sanji never knew that he needed. But Zeff became a father. And so when Sanji leaves, it's like he takes a piece of the heart of the Baratie with him. And I constantly want to see the quiet moments of Zeff in his cabin without Sanji. I constantly just want to read his journal and hear how he's moving through with his life without Sanji there. And whenever we do flashes around the world, the first person I want to see every time is Zeff.
I always want to see Zeff. One of my absolute favorite things with like Zeff and Sanji's dynamic, and that's why one of my favorite panels is Sanji saying the Baratie is Zeff's pride and joy, and of course it's focused on Sanji because Sanji is actually Zeff's pride and joy, without a doubt. Sanji is 100% his pride and joy, and I love every time we cut back to the Baratie, because the second Zeff found Sanji's wanted poster, got Sanji's wanted poster, he made it the Baratie's gate. He made Sanji's wanted poster the Baratie's gate. He loves this boy so much, he will let everyone know that Sanji is his son. Sanji like is his pride, and I love that so dearly, because think of how like Judge was, right? Judge wanted nothing to do with Sanji. Judge said, never let anyone know that you are my son.
Together.
Exactly, right? And then now he's got an actual father who is doing the exact opposite and is doing all he can to show the world, this is my boy. You will know that this is my boy. He even did like the deal, I think, that was like, if you bring in Sanji's wanted poster, you get like half off your meal or something.
And something else too. I was thinking about how Robin called Luffy romantic, and how stupid I was that I never saw Romance Dawn and put it together at the time when Robin said it. I was like, oh yeah. And so I started to look at the crew members in terms of those ideas, of those monikers, and I realized that Sanji is graceful. And I had never really thought of him in terms of that, but when I started to think about like, what term would I give for Sanji? Graceful in so many ways. He has the grace to apologize like he means it. Like he apologizes in a way that is so firm. He moves with grace. He forgives with grace. He loves with grace. He's kind with grace. And I realized that for me, one of the reasons that I love Sanji is his gracefulness.
One of the words I would use to describe Sanji is hopeless. And I don't just mean hopeless in like a sad way. I mean, he's a hopeless romantic. He's a hopeless dreamer. He's just hopelessly in love with so many things, you know, like not just women, of course, but his crew, the world. He's got such a just a hopeless, like endearing hopelessness to him that's just, I think, is just so beautiful of him, because it's like, I always said that Sanji, while he still has pervert gags, right? He still has pervert gags. I still will never say he's the pervert character, because he's not. He is incredibly different to how a shonen pervert is written. A shonen pervert has absolutely nothing more to them than just being a perv,
Oh
right?
yeah, Mama
Sanji,
Drawk
on the
hasn't
other
read enough
hand,
shonen to realize how bad it gets out there.
yeah, it's horrible out there, which is why I defend Sanji with my life, and I say, listen, he's got some issues, but it is he's still not the pervert character. I will never label him as
He
that.
is no
But
Mineta.
he is Sanji, in my opinion, and I honestly believe this is what Oda was doing. He's so much more. He's like a shoujo boy in a shonen world. Sanji is like a shoujo prince who is being put into One Piece's world, because if you read shoujo and you get to the princely character, they behave like Sanji. They twirl and they love and they speak like Sanji. That is how a shoujo prince is, right? And I just truly believe that that is what Oda wanted to do, because we know he reads shoujo. Oda reads and writes a lot, and I think he was truly trying to make this comically shoujo prince character with Sanji and place him within shonen, and that's kind of part of the joke.
I
It's like,
think you're
what the hell are
right.
you doing here? Because even Whole Cake Island did not feel like a shonen. Whole Cake Island felt like a fairy tale, a romance.
Well,
You know, this is a shoujo arc for this kid.
I think for part of the reason why is One Piece's tendency to add a second genre, and that time it was fairy tale. But I do think you're right that it had a lot of shoujo, especially with Pudding.
Pretty sure he's the shoujo boy
I
within
think
the
you're right.
shonen
I
world.
think you're so right.
Because even when he first gets introduced to Nami and he sees her, it's one of my favorite scenes. He's twirling around and he's reciting. He's like, "Oh heart,
Yeah.
be still,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
ocean
Yeah.
shimmer," and it's like,
And
this
they're
is
like,
a
"Did you be a
shoujo
witch here?
prince.
What the hell is
Yeah.
going on?"
Like they're bizarre, like they're weirded out. They're like, "What in the world is wrong with this guy?" And it's just, he's just hopeless. He's just a hopeless man. He's hopelessly in love. He's got a big, beautiful heart. He can't help this. He's got hard eyes. He's got sparkles and flowers around him. He's just like that. He's just a sparkly prince who can't help
Even
where his
in that
heart takes
moment,
him.
that's what I'm saying. And I don't disagree. I agree with your thinking. That's why I say, like, even in that moment, he's twirling around and he's fanciful and dancing. It's so graceful, and he doesn't fight with his hands, so he's flipping and kicking, and
Yeah.
he's just this like graceful prince who smiles with sad eyes, and it's
Well, this is why in Alabasta his fight was with Bon Clay. Bon Clay was
yes,
literally a ballerina.
yes, exactly. The two of
And
them
this
fighting
is
together was so good for that.
exactly. So when people were like, he went to Kamabaka Island, Kuma threw him there, he already had a connection with Kamabaka through Bon
Yes,
Clay. Like he already
yes.
had this idea that he does actually fit in here, as much as he doesn't like that he does fit in here.
I 100% agree. Hey, just curious, are you going to give the fish Sanji's eyebrow?
I wasn't
Yeah,
going
what the
to
hell?
because the swirls were the waves.
Yeah, but come on. Can
I'm
we
gonna let
just
Melon
try it out?
decide. Melon, does the fish have Sanji's eyebrow?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Now,
Then I
I
will.
demand it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna finish the
You know,
fire
one of my
first, but then yeah.
very favorite, like, I love it when the characters have little moments that are extra that just give them that little bit of depth and roundness to their character. My favorite one with Sanji is when he lights a cigarette with Diable Jambe. And when he just leans down and lights his smoke. I'm like, I don't know why, but every time he does it, I'm like, I know smoking kills. But can we be honest right now? That's like,
I feel like
so cool.
Oda is constantly looking for ways Sanji can light his cigarette in fun ways. My personal favorite's always going to be the Anaru moment, but I feel like Oda's always on the lookout like, can we light his cigarette right now? Does it make sense?
One of my favorite things about Sanji and a cigarette as well is, and it's just now I'm like super confident about it, but Sanji lighting a cigarette is a stress thing. When he's
Yeah.
stressed and when he's anxious, you know, because he's lighting that cigarette. He doesn't tend to smoke outside of stressful situations. It's only when he's like,
Interesting.
"Oh God, something's going on here." Like
He
one of my
also does it in
favorite scenes.
preparation. Like,
Yeah.
he does it in preparation and reflection. Like, he does the one where he talks about his mom. He's out on the deck outside the Sunny, and he goes, "My real mother was a kind woman. She gave me a name and love." And he lights a cigarette in that moment. You know what my favorite one that he lights a cigarette in and has a thought is when he goes, "The hunter becomes the prey."
So what I'm hearing is he does it
yeah.
either when things are stressful or when he needs to have dramatic appeal.
When he needs aura, yeah.
Yeah.
But
That was
Aura
one of my
farming with
favorite.
the cigarette.
one of my favorites was when Kami got taken in Saboti, and they found out, like, Sanji had the slave list for prices, and he was smoking 3 cigarettes at once. He was
Yes,
that
that's
stressed, he
right.
was really freaking out. And another one was
Yes.
when in Punk Hazard they changed bodies, and he was twitching, and Nami gave him a cigarette and said, "You wanna smoke? It's okay, you can smoke." Something I really, really, really love, and this is something I noticed on my Baratie reread. Every time Zeff is around, Sanji particularly looks like a child. So when
Yes.
Sanji is talking
Interesting.
with Luffy or when he's talking with the other chefs, he's got like the hooded eye and he's got the cool demeanor. But when he's talking to Zeff, his eyes get wider. He suddenly looks rounder sometimes. He's like more childishly like argumentative as well. He always looks
Interesting.
smaller next to Zeff, and it's like Zeff is his boy, you know, that's his son. And it's like, I feel like it's a purposeful decision to make Sanji look younger and look more childish around Zeff. I just love the moments of when his childishness comes through, and it's like in a good way. Because one of my absolute favorites ever is like Sanji just can't help. He's just kind of childish. He's just got a childish whimsy to him. He can't help it. Is when he tries to act like a man and he tries to act so high and adult and mature. But then when when the Don Krieg fight is finished and all the chefs are eating and they're eating the soup, they say, "Who made this soup?" And we have a panel of Sanji, and he puts his hand up and he
It
goes,
looks
"I
so
did! I
cute.
made this soup!" He's like, "Isn't it delicious?" And he looks so cute and round, and he's so happy. And it's like, this is like a child wanting to be praised. He's going, "I did! I made the soup! Isn't it so yummy?" Like, he's just such a he's got so much like a want to be loved, you know, like he's so childish wanting to be praised like that. But that is such a theme in One Piece too, because it reminds me of Robin meeting Saul, and that title for that was, you know, "I want to be praised, praise me." And that's Saul saying, you know, praising Robin for being alive and thanking Robin for being alive. Like, there's a positive thing here of Sanji having this childishness to him, of still having this whimsy to him. And it's just these moments of when he looks more like a child in the Baratie or more childish is a good thing. It's meant to represent that he's still got that whimsy in his heart, that wonder in his heart. Like, Oda believes there's a good and positive thing to having a childish whimsy and a childish fantasy. He thinks that's a good thing. And I believe
Obviously,
Baratie was
manga author, so you have to have
yeah,
that in order to.
and I believe the Baratie was really one of the starts of showing that, and Sanji's own introduction was the start of that this is a
Zeff,
good thing.
Zeff being a dick and not telling him like, "You are a great cook and this is amazing," is also beautiful when you think about how Zeff is trying to say, "Piss off. You're not
Yeah,
meant to be a cook. You had a, or maybe you were meant to be a cook elsewhere. You weren't meant to be stuck here. You're meant to
yeah,
have a life. Get the shit off this ship
yeah,
and go and make
Mama.
your own life." And so if he's just kind, then he's just creating an easy, soft space in which to whittle away the rest of your life.
One of my favorite panels as well, I keep saying favorite panels, which supports what you said, is when Zeff punches Sanji, right? And punching him's a big deal because that's Zeff saying, "You're more important than these hands." Because of course the
Mhm.
hands are a treasure to a
Yes.
cook, and he's literally using his hands to punch Sanji to show him, "This is how much you mean to me," right? But Zeff says to Sanji, "You'll never be able to cook like me, baby eggplant. I've cooked on all the oceans of the world." That is literally him saying, "You want to be the cook that I know you can be. You need to
Get
go
that
find
talent out.
yourself."
Mhm.
Right? You need to explore. That's what
Y
Mihawk said to Zoro. Go
You are
find
limiting
yourself.
yourself
Go
by being here.
explore.
Yeah.
Right? He's literally giving Sanji his approval to just go and
Uh,
find yourself. Go explore.
the more I think about it, the more I can't help but love the duality of Zoro and Sanji's journeys being set up simultaneously, of one
Yeah.
being yeah, you have to accept that your dream is childish and that it's silly and it's too big for you and chase it anyways. And the other going, oh, you have fully embraced this childish, silly thing and you don't quite understand the size of it. You need to
Yeah.
understand the size of this thing you are blindly chasing. And it feels like at this same moment, Luffy manages to be in the middle of being this person who it feels like really does understand the size and weight of what he's taking on. And we see that in the moment where he tells Krieg, oh, yeah, no, I know. I know it's not a game. I'm fully fucking aware. You want to throw hands? Like, it sees the man everyone's afraid of, tells him you realize it's not a game, and Luffy's like, yeah, so? Fucking what?
I was this is something that I'm gonna be addressing in a future video at some point, but
Oh, yeah.
something that I was double checking with friends is I'm trying to find the panel. I
Mhm.
think my favorite, now I keep saying my favorite, but this is for sure my
Well, you've been
definite
saying one
favorite
of your
panel.
favorites until now. Now you're saying your
I
favorite.
know.
That's different.
This is 100% my favorite. My favorite panel is when we have Zeff, like, building up to it. We have Zeff talking to Sanji, and I love it. I love Zeff mentoring Sanji, teaching Sanji that this is what it means to chase your dreams.
Mhm.
And he's saying to Sanji, once in a long while, a fool comes along who, having set his sights on something, won't
Yeah.
quit fighting till he dies. And Zeff
Yeah.
is like, it's a real nuisance to have someone like that as your enemy. And Zeff is saying, watch him closely, Sanji, because I'll give Luffy this. There's no give in him. And
Yes.
it's in the end, it's not about weapons. Grit counts more than steel. Now, there, Zeff isn't saying grit. Grit is just a very odd translation for early Viz. He's
Mhm.
saying the word shinen. Shinen means, like, I have it written down here. Shinen means faith, conviction, or belief. And a better translation would probably be willpower. And
Yeah.
shinen, that word is a very, very, very important word because it's everywhere when characters are talking about their ambitions and their dreams. So basically, Zeff is telling us a theme of One Piece straight to our faces. Luffy has faith, willpower, conviction, belief. This is why he never backs down. And my favorite panel is when Luffy fights and fights and fights and fights. And Zeff says to Sanji, if Craig's ragtag team fleet is military might and his fancy weapons are military might, then Luffy's grit is military might too. And we get a panel of just Sanji looking off at Luffy and he just says grit. And of course, the word is like shinen. So he's saying like willpower. Like this is being instilled in Sanji. And it's such a beautiful panel of you can see Sanji is starting to believe, he's starting to understand that's what he needs, that he has been holding himself back from his own idea of conviction and belief and willpower. He's holding his own things back. And Zeff even says it. He says, I know a fool who's chewing a spear of his own for no good reason. So he's saying to Sanji, I know you have this in you. I know what you are seeing in Luffy, you have that too, but you're holding yourself back for other people's sake, even though we're not asking for it, right? So the panel of Sanji saying grit, just as he stares off at Luffy, is my favorite panel of all of Baratie because this is like a core of not just Sanji, but of One Piece overall and what Luffy is and how he fights and how anyone in One Piece stands, right? It's just such a powerful panel that I adore.
You're massively right, and that this arc really leans into the idea I talked before about. There's a documentary about all the people who were lost in the tidal wave in Japan, and in it there is a phone booth that's on this person's yard that they just put there, and people started to go to it. They found it during the tidal wave. People started to go to it and pick up the phone and talk to their loved ones that they lost and were never found. And one of the things that the narrator is talking about in the documentary is how in a Japanese world, they won't say I love you, it'll be through action. And
Yeah.
they won't say I owe you, it'll be through what is done. And that's why a bunch of people come up and say things like, I built your sunroom. It's very beautiful. You were right. I've put your plants in there. I am taking good care of them. And they're telling people this into the telephone booth. And this arc to me felt like that acknowledgement from Oda that we were watching Sanji and Zeff tell each other over and over again, I love you.
I
I
love
love you.
you. Yeah.
I love you. And they kept saying it on all these ways in the I'm not going to praise your cooking. You need to leave. I'm never going to leave. I am going to do everything for you. Even if it makes my soul bitter, I'm going to suck it up. And then Zeff being like, there's something to admire in a person who has this grit. And Sanji saying, oh, seeing finally, he's saying, I need that grit. And how all these actions are just them over and over again saying, I love you. And then how that extends into the Straw Hats for the rest of our story. How we see that exact same thing carrying out with our Straw Hats, and that their actions are a love story.
Yep. It's all about love. I've always said One Piece is all about love. That's what it's about. It's about
It
how
is all
much
about
people love each other, and it just
Which
the action of love.
yeah.
Which is interesting because I think you're right, because of that Japanese perspective, we don't see the direct statement of I love you. We see the word love mentioned, but we mostly see love between people through implication, through action, conviction, how they express that feeling instead of this direct statement. I think that's really interesting and compelling. And it also makes me think more and more about the idea of the fist of love, about Sanji saying love is how he could kick a laser beam, etc. Like, I still
Especially
am.
in a culture that believes in found family and friendship being a small family group. Oh,
God,
everyone wanted Melonteee and Mugiwara no Goofy together in Whole Cake Island.
especially Goofy. Goofy especially wanted that.
He's allowed on. He's fun to talk
Okay.
to when it comes to Sanji. But I said this to you, Drawk. I DM'd you, and I
Yeah.
cannot believe he did this. He revealed what my favorite panel is.
He
back in
did.
the stream that we did
And that
with
was
him. So I got so many comments on my social medias going, Mel, what do you mean that that's your favorite panel? And I'm like, why in the world am I being asked this? What happened? And I found out
what?
that
It
bum.
was our stream? That's so funny.
That bum
I had
revealed
no
it.
idea.
Oh,
I feel like we were complicit in an outing, and I feel pretty uncomfortable about it.
man, I didn't know he outed you like that. That's crazy. I thought this was, I
You know
didn't know
what?
this wasn't publicly known.
Hold the arc over his head in a big way. That is a deserved moment.
I will. For those who didn't know, my favorite panel is Sanji crying outside Pudding's window. That is like my favorite panel ever in all of One Piece.
I see it. I see your vision. Also, that's crazy. And it is crazy to know that immediately.
I'm such a Sanji crier fan, I'm afraid. But of course, it's not just the fact he's crying. It's everything around it. But I don't know, maybe we can...
scene holds up a lot. It's very, very emotionally weighty.
But it's in the same way that...
It could have been very different. He could have been like, oh God, what the shit? About her face, about her third eye, about her attitude, about who she was. And
no,
instead
it's a different scene. Different scene. It's after he's found out she's evil.
Yes,
yeah, it's
that's
after
what I'm saying. He's standing outside, he sees her face, he hears what she's saying, and instead of being what a stupid bitch, his heart cracks, and he's like, I thought we actually had something.
I get
well,
it.
it's him thinking, I am in a horrible, horrible situation. I'm literally in hell, but I have one savior, one thing I can actually do, and that is be able to be good to Pudding, right? And then he hears, oh, actually, she thinks I'm useless, and she thinks I'm a failure.
She feels about me the way my family does.
And after Luffy, I'm pretty sure, after his fight with Luffy, that's like the second time he cries in Whole Cake Island, because that's it. He's like, everything I've done is for nothing. It's all for nothing. Like, this is just, I am useless. I am a failure. There's nothing I can do anymore. I have to cry. There's everything about it is like, yeah, the lighter, as he's trying to literally trying to find a spark, anything just gets put out. There's nothing there, and he just silently cries. It's such a showing of how One Piece's emotional like scenes are just so good. They're so good because the whole time before that, Sanji was putting on a mask. Just all of Whole Cake Island, he's putting on a mask, and then that is a huge moment. We see the mark. It just fully breaks. Fully breaks. He's just like, this is it. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I might as well die. Anyway, that's why. There's many reasons more, but I love that scene.
Hey, Melon, get ready. She's gonna go crazy.
What? So wrong. I'm super hinged.
It's plug time.
Hey there, YouTube. It's me, Manga Drawk. You know me from such places as this place where you've been hearing me. If you have liked this, then like this. It's weird when you don't like this when you liked it. If you didn't like it, still like it, because then you can force other people you don't like to see it because the algorithm will go wild. Tell us, what do you think is Sanji's greatest moment? You know what? Fine. Fine, Zoro lovers. I have lately learned to love Zoro because I started to listen to the anime, and Zoro's voice is so goddamn good that I have been having a Zoro moment, and I'm all like, who's this sexy beast and where did he come from? Has he been here all along? I don't know. So if you want, you can also tell us your favorite Zoro moment. We are here today with MELONTEEE. That is MELONTEEE. You will recognize her from such places as her show, for God's sakes. You've seen her. And her cat ears, which are magnificent. Come back for Drawk's essay of craziness.
Oh yeah, the Claire Obscure essay.
We also do a Patreon talk where we ask Patreons strange questions, make them do things. Then another thing we do is Berserk. Same vibes. Berserk was obviously the next thing we were going to read. I've said it all. I won't say it again. You heard it. It was here. Follow MELONTEEE, because if you don't, you're silly. Bye!
Yeah, it was.
I was going to say real quick, this is a fun fact, and I found this out. In the Baratie, when Sanji jumps over he who shall not be named's flames and says, moron, you can't be a cook if you're afraid of fire. From that, some people back in the day guessed that maybe Sanji would incorporate fire into his,
you know what,
like, battle.
You know how
Luffy
incorporates, you know how Luffy incorporates his experiences into his kit? Sanji did the same because he saw Pearl light himself on fire and was like, I'm going to figure out how to do that because that's a power I want to have. Pearl, you've inspired me with your brilliant martial arts, is what Sanji said.
Well, let's not say brilliant and Pearl in the same sentence.
Yeah, but it was his brilliant martial arts that inspired Diable Jambe.
Come on now.
But there was also one more page that I feel is worth a mention and I really, 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 really like. And well, I mean, we totally skipped out when Luffy first saw Sanji and he said, I found you my cook. First of all, that is crazy.
Yes, I love
that. He said, found you my cook. And it's like, damn,
what a
he's already decided this is mine. And you know, I love throughout all of Baratie how obsessive Luffy is. He's obsessed with Sanji. He needs Sanji to the point that when Sanji at the very end says, no, I'm still not coming with you, Luffy goes, okay. But he's still holding on to Sanji. And Sanji says, let go. Yeah, he says, tell your hand to give up too. Like, he's so obsessed with Sanji. He desperately wants him on the crew, but Luffy still acknowledges, no, Sanji still needs to agree on his own terms. I can't make him come with me, which is similar to Whole Cake Island, mind you. However, there's a really, 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 really good scene when, once again, Sanji is fighting he who shall not be named. And Sanji had already jumped through the fire, right?
Yeah.
Directly after that, Luffy jumps through the fire. And Sanji is shocked, and Luffy directly in front of Sanji stops Don Craig's big spike ball from hitting Sanji, and Sanji is shocked. And it's like, we get this panel, I think the first panel of Luffy jumping in front of Sanji to protect and save him. And I feel like that is incredibly significant because, of course, that means a lot to Sanji for someone to protect him and save him. And I think at that point, after that, it's like Luffy is now different in his eyes. Luffy is now someone he is no longer just seeing as a chore boy. He's literally jumping through the flames to stop Sanji from getting hurt. And it's like, that means an insane amount to Sanji that someone is doing that to him. And I absolutely love that page and I love that panel of Luffy protecting Sanji for the first time.
I think I completely agree with you. I think my favorite panel, besides Sanji bowing to Zeff and telling him he owes him his life and that whole thing and everybody crying floating in the water, is the Luffy's hand on Sanji and he goes, you're right, you can go, and he goes, tell your
hand to give up too.
Yeah, which I love.
It's such a good panel. And then there was, I'm sorry, because like there are so many, I know we were going to wrap up, but it's like I can't stop talking about Baratie. There was also one of my favorite things about Luffy in the Baratie is we are seeing truly just how aware he is of people and their feelings. He's incredibly good at reading people and understanding people because we have Sanji telling Zeff, no, I'll die before the Baratie gets taken out. I'll die before you die or whatever the hell. Like, I'll die to make sure you don't die. And Zeff is like, You know, I didn't ask for that. I didn't tell you to do that. And we see Luffy getting progressively more and more and more angry and upset the more he hears these two fighting, because Luffy is seeing what Sanji is not seeing, and that's Zeff loves Sanji. He's clearly like begging Sanji, oh my god, do not do anything for me or the Baratie because I just want you to live. And Luffy's fucking had it. He's sick of it to the point that he breaks off the Baratie's fins, because he's like, if we fight out here, this isn't the Baratie, and then we can fight to our heart's content, and Zeff won't get shot. Because like he sees exactly why Zeff is getting so frustrated. Because Luffy's the same. Luffy had the same thing happen to him and Shanks. Luffy had Shanks save him, and now he wants to live for Shanks. And now Luffy is watching like a pessimistic version of himself going, no, I'll just die instead. Like, that is the most frustrating thing Luffy could possibly be going through in that moment of like, I know what you're feeling and you're going about it the wrong way. Listen to me. And directly after that, Zeff smiles again. Every time Zeff smiles, it's because he loves Luffy. He knows Luffy understands.
There's something so charming about Luffy always knowing what people need to hear, but never knowing how to say it, so he has to speak through actions. Like, Luffy persuades somebody through his words. He always has to say a very simple thing and then express through what he does that he exactly does understand their situation and what they need.
Yes. And don't forget my very favorite part in this is Mihawk. Like, hats off, Mihawk. Watching your character in here, you came on in a big way, and then watching the way that you left, sailing off into the sunset without even sailing. Shut up.
The drama, the flair.
I think one of the most impressive things One Piece ever does. So many shonen, because it's all about power, you need to keep making the power level go up and 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 up forever. And eventually you lose track, everything loses meaning, it becomes very silly. And One Piece, sure, it's over the top and silly, but it introduces the ceiling of where the power will go. Mihawk is still one of the strongest people in the world. He's so up there. And One Piece has stayed honest to his level for the entire series. We are introduced incredibly early to what the top looks like, and the rest of the series participates in this bracket set up by this moment. And we're only now beginning to look past that ceiling in the slightest. And I think that's really impressive writing to show that level of restraint for over 20 years, of staying within the bounds you've set for yourself for over 20 years. That's incredible.
I love Mihawk because he's such an introduction of like the world when we get to see him. Because one of my favorite things he does is he tells us there are 4 seas. We didn't know this beforehand. Nami didn't tell us with Gaimon. I checked. He tells us there are 4 seas. The East is the weakest. He's literally introducing us to this world in a big way, not by just telling us about the 4 seas and the Grand Line, but by existing as someone who lives on the Grand Line and fights on the Grand Line. Like, we are being shown the like beyond of One Piece by the Baratie thanks to Mihawk, which is why it's just so funny that Zoro's like, yeah, I can take him. This is it. I can take him. And then he gets his
I've done it.
His world, because he's like, I cannot believe I'm this, like, we're this far apart. And it's like, oh my God, like, Zoro was way too big for his britches. It's like he was way too big for his own ambition in that moment.
Luffy and Zoro are in the same boat right now of being the big fish in the small pond, where because Smoker and the Marines in general have done such a good job at keeping pirates from getting too big in this area, they're kind of the biggest deals going on, and everyone they're fighting is no real threat to them. And that, I think, is so necessary. Introducing Mihawk is so necessary. Expanding the world the way you say he does is so important. Because for it to feel believable that Luffy and his crew can take on figures like Crocodile, they kind of need to be above the weight class of everyone else in the East Blue. Like, we need that for it to feel reasonable that he can start taking on these bigger figures. But you can't have him be bigger than everyone without feeling like, oh, so everything's going to be easy forever, unless you introduce something that's a hint of how much bigger the world can be.
Melon, do you have a wild theory that you like, that you lead into?
My wild theory is Crocodile is the missing Amazon Lily Empress.
Oh my God.
And I think it makes sense. I am spreading this propaganda like crazy, because you know how many people are like, but we've seen her name. We've seen her image, because Oda showed that in the generational like thing. And I'm like, Yeah, he's trans. We've seen Iva change gender. It
We
changes
know
your
Iva has a
entire
secret. Yeah, we know
appearance.
Iva owns a
It
secret of Crocs.
it changes your whole appearance. So when people are like, but we've already seen her," you are so not thinking like Ivankov, and it's really frustrating.
Man cruises with so many
Ivankov has
reptiles.
Ivankov has trans Crocodile's gender. Crocodile is actually called Sir Crocodile. Like, that is not his original name. You know what I mean? There's no way that's his original name, Sir Crocodile. And then it's like, we find that he, like you said, like crocodiles, reptiles. Crocodile has an
Literally named himself
affiliation with
after a reptile.
animals.
Yeah.
He has affiliation with animals. We find on Amazon Lily, they have an insane affiliation with animals. They literally work together with animals. They even
Wouldn't
have
that
an
be
animal keeper
wouldn't that be
on
crazy
their
if 2 of the
crew,
original warlords were Kuja?
right? So it's like, and my theory for why Crocodile is the way he is I think he used to exist on Amazon Lily, but there was the no man rule, right? But his love and his freedom was, he was like, I want to be a man. I am a man, right?
I
And that would get him kicked out.
Crocodile being trans is something I have fully believed in. Like Iva having a secret of Crocs specifically, like making that who blackmails him and has a secret. That feels like it's too
Yeah.
much of a thing. There's
Yeah.
also apparently an RPG people have confirmed Oda liked that's not very popular in the West that has 7 figures and they have powers that line up fairly well with the warlords, and the sand one is genderqueer, so that's a thing
Mm,
as well.
mm.
That feels like way more circumstantial than the Iva thing. So I've been on board with
Yeah.
Croc is trans.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
have never considered where Croc as a woman comes from, and the idea of
Yeah.
being the missing do the ages line up is the thing. Do they?
The ages line up. Yeah, because Bo is
Okay.
like 30 and Crocodile's like 40 something. He's of the generation of the missing
Yeah.
empress. Also, he wants a utopia.
The
For
game is
some
called
reason,
Romance
he
Saga
wanted a
too.
he also wanted a utopia. For
That's it.
some reason, he wants a utopia. He wants to like rule. And it's like, I'm sensing that he is from somewhere that disregarded him and removed him for some reason. And I think it might be Amazon Lily. That's my craziest theory. That
I
Crocodile's
love
the
it.
missing Amazon Lily empress.
Hey, can we make his eyebrow the tiniest bit thicker if I was like,
Well,
if I
A
gave
little
you
bit
a wink
thicker.
and a nod?
here's the issue is I didn't make it a vector layer, so I actually have to draw it thicker instead of just use a tool.
So,
I just
how do
think,
we rate? How do we grade?
So we have
okay, so
2
we
ranking
can do it in
systems, and
two different ways.
you get to pick which
I
ranking
will
system you
tell
wanna
you
use.
my way, Drawk will tell you his way.
Yes, Mama, you
Okay.
explain your method of grading.
Because I'm a teacher, instead of grading really clinically, I don't grade really clinically. I grade it all on its own, not against the rest of the story. I grade it as if it's a standalone. Drawk does it different.
I grade on a harsh bell curve, the bell curve of One Piece. This arc has shown up to class with every other arc through the history of One Piece. I grade on a
Uh-huh.
curve, and I grade this thing that Oda wrote when he was 20 years less experienced against the quality of all that comes after.
Okay.
And I say that because we're walking back through, I'm the person who says each arc deserves its own shine, and
Mhm.
I'm just going to grade it on what it is as its own thing.
I'm going to give my ranking. Remember, this is on the bell
Yes.
curve of One Piece, which is why it pains me to say that the best I can give this on the bell curve of what's to come is like a B, probably more of a B minus, because I fucking love this shit. This is so good, and I'm saying I think I'm not going to do a B minus. I came in expecting a B minus, and I'm giving it a B instead because frankly, the step up in quality of doing setup, handling themes, putting themes in the fight, implying character, showing character facial expressions and reactions is important. The step up in caliber of writing was actually a lot sharper than I expected it to be. So on my brutal, I have to compare this to everything that comes after, which feels unfair, but that's how I'm doing it. I'm giving this a B. That is my ranking. That is what I'm giving the Baratie. B for Baratie.
All right. What do you think, Mel?
I can't do your A, B, C system because we have different gradings in Australia, so I'm gonna go from 1 to 10. I just know it's different because of The Simpsons, but I know
No,
you're Canada
America's
and
is brutal.
America.
America's is
we're
so
not
much
like
different.
I'll go from 0 to 10 just to make things easier for me.
Okay.
I'll do both of your methods. So I'll do
Oh wow,
first
we're getting
Drawks,
2.
which is comparing it to everything. Comparing it to everything, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
7 out of 10 around there, simply because it is such a good setup for like ambition and dreams for what we are like heading into, with Mihawk being introduced, with Zoro getting the cut on his chest, with understanding how Luffy fights, what he fights for, with the Grand Line being introduced not just through Mihawk, through Zeff as well, mind you. um, and meeting a character like Sanji and me singing like the heart, how One Piece will progress now with like this kind of emotion and heart. I have to give that like at least a 7, I think, because it just set up so many things in such an interesting and compelling way that really struck me. Like, I wouldn't be as into One Piece, nor would I probably would have continued reading One Piece if Baratie were not Baratie. So I have to give it that. And then on its own, I'm going to be incredibly generous and give it a 9, only because I love Sanji far too much. Far too much. I will happily say he's currently my favorite character in all of fiction. I just love him
Wow.
so much. I can't not love him. He's just such a loser. Like, he's such a loser. He's such a walking contradiction.
I,
He's such a problem,
you
but
know,
he's also not a loser and he's also not a problem. You know what I mean? There's just so
I,
much to him that just makes me
I just
cry.
think I just hit a realization. All of the exact phrases you've used to describe Sanji are how people endearingly describe girl failure characters, but for a boy. It's
Yeah.
just
No, Sanji's a boy failure. In my
his boy
heart, he's a
failure.
girl failure as well.
Well,
Like,
but that
I love Sanji's character so goddamn much because, like, I've always said it feels like I've liked other characters before, but it feels like they were in preparation for me to meet Sanji, and then I
wow.
met Sanji, and it's like,
That's
wow, this is it.
that's
This is
intense.
my guy. I just love him. I love everything about him,
It's
even his worst moments. I love him. I can't help loving him as well. Like, it's not just his character, but
mm,
the representation of kindness is so original in One Piece, and it was nothing that I'd ever seen before. And I remember this made me think, this is different. This is different from other things I've read. This is feeling different from the way these themes are usually portrayed. There is something more happening here, because I just think there's so many powerful messages there of the being kind is not easy. Because I hate when people say, "Oh, it's just easy to be kind."
mhm,
I don't think it is. It takes knowledge and it takes being taught. It takes empathy, which we must learn.
mhm,
Kindness is something that is awareness, in my opinion. Not everyone has that. And it's the awareness of, even if you are kind, there will still be consequences to your kindness. And that is truly what makes you kind, understanding the consequences and doing it anyway. And then there's also like the lesson of, if someone has given their life for you, live. You live for them. You don't die. You don't give your own life back. You simply live. That's what they want. That's what someone you love wants you to do. They want you to live. And I absolutely love that message. Sanji's backstory with the food as well on the rock, it always chokes me up. It always makes me cry. I've never not gone through it without crying, because it's multiple things. It's Sanji as a child starving on a rock. I don't like seeing kids starving. That might be controversial, but that really gets me. Really gets to me seeing that poor little boy starve. The desperation as well in wanting to survive, this tears as he says to Zeff, "Why? I never gave you a reason to be kind to me." It's just, all of it is self-contained. It is just so much. It's so much when it's like that. The way we see Zeff and Sanji's bond develop, the way we see them love each other, the way we see Sanji want to chase something, and we see Zoro and Luffy inspire him to chase something. The way getting the all blue out of him is like pulling teeth. Like, it's impossible to get him to cough up the all blue. It took Luffy beating an armada to get the all blue out of Sanji, right? Like, that's how tough it was to get this dream out of this guy. Everything about Baratie is what originally made me fall in love with One Piece, for sure. Which is why I have to give it a 9 out of 10, because it's like, the only reason it doesn't have a 10 out of 10 is because it's still early days and it's not Whole Cake Island. So that's about it.
All right, Mama, what are you
Okay.
doing?
All on its own, I'm giving it an A. It's not just Sanji's backstory, although I
Yeah.
love it. There's an idea of Luffy having idealism versus realism. This first time that he meets and sees that the world outside, the Mihawks and the Don Kriegs, are much bigger than he thought, but still coming against it with grit and determination. And we see that we're going to watch a character in Luffy who is going to see realism and meet it every time with idealism and come up with his own way of moving through it. The Zoro versus Mihawk, for me, I wrote down earlier, humiliation versus honor, and how you can learn to take humiliation and make it part of your honor. And that somebody like Mihawk can see somebody like Zoro and realize killing him actually wouldn't have given him any honor, that his honor would come in letting him see him to his fruition so that he could fight him at his best, realizing that it was possible that this person could become his match, and that's where the honor lay. And then in a simple world, the floating restaurant in the middle of the sea was such an unexpected setting and so cool that I was reading along and we got there and I was like, oh, we're not just going to go to islands. We're going to have like such cool settings that I never have dreamed of. Just all of a sudden pulling a boat up to a restaurant in the middle of the sea. Where do you get all your ingredients? Who's coming? How do you know? How far off the coast are you? Like, you start to ask all these cool questions around it and start to think about like, what other things are on the sea? What other things I'm going to find? And immediately after this, shortly thereafter, we go up Reverse Mountain and I was like, oh, damn, I knew I was right to put my faith in this. And then I think that getting to hear about the Grand Line teas before we went on was really cool, and it made it, all the way through before you go onto the Grand Line, everyone's trying to be like, you do not understand how unprepared you are. You do not understand how unprepared you were. And then we hear about Don Krieg's group, and we see Mihawk, and we hear about the tales of what it was like out there. And we realize maybe we really aren't. So he showed us the scaling, both of the world and of the powers, early. And I thought, that is so cool. And if I had only read this one arc, I would have been like, that was such a good read. So independently, all on its own, it's an A. It's not an A+ because it's not impelled down, but it's an A.
Also,
impelled down is an A++.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Was what? Oh, yeah. Was up?
I feel like one more thing you can add to the art is a heart to frame the background there, just like a big heart.
In the background,
just a heart
all this would be inside of. Yeah,
I've been thinking about a background frame because that's a thing I often do, but I couldn't think of anything. So let's see what we can do.
Because the heart is not only Sanji, right? But it's also Zeff and Sanji's love and the love to chase your dreams and ambitions. Isn't that beautiful?
I think I wasn't a good enough reader the first time I went through it. And coming back as a better reader and really, really taking in how well told it is, it was something special. I really enjoyed this.
What happened with me with it is I wasn't expecting it. So I was kind of going through it with I'll read through it. And then I remember when we got to Sanji's story, I had to stop. And I was like, this is good. Like, I had to sit there and go, wait, this is good. Like, what's going on? Fun fact about me, I was not expecting to like Sanji. I thought I was going to hate him. Because I was told he was the pervert character. And I hate pervert characters because they're usually not funny, right?
Yeah.
And then we get introduced to him, and it's like, whoever was telling me that is so wrong. They are so wrong. He's got instances to him, but he's a lover boy more than anything. Like, I just can't get over
roles he occupies. So it makes sense that people go there, but it does
it flanderizes him into just a one-dimensional thing.
I agree.
And it's like, that's not what he is. Yeah, yes, he's got an unsightly gag or two. Don't get me wrong, he's not perfect. But for God's sake, he's not the pervert character. He's so much more. And it just really frustrates me.
Oda made him say and do some repulsive things because Zoro was supposed to be the one that everyone went after. And what was to like about Zoro more than Sanji? Sanji was cooler, funnier, said more interesting things.
He had to nerf Sanji. Sanji was just too good.
Exactly.
Sanji too OP.
So he's like, oh, let's take a little thriller bark on this bitch. Now deal with it. And I was like, no.
Oh, he's beautiful.
What else do we do in our closing segment? Why don't I ever
I think there
remember?
was a thing. Oh yeah, we talk about what we think will be the epilogue for the characters introduced in this arc. I think Sanji is going to open a restaurant at sea on the All Blue. That's what I expect will be Sanji's
That too.
epilogue. That's what I see for him.
Here's what I think.
Yep.
If we go
Yep.
we go in order of mentor and mentee,
Yep.
Luffy was trained by Rayleigh.
Yep.
Luffy will become Pirate King. Zoro was trained by Mihawk. Zoro will become Master Swordsman. Sanji was trained by Ivankov.
What are you doing?
Queen of Kamabaka Queendom! Come on, Oda! I know you want to do it! Make him the new queen! It's right there! The cook, the fight style, it's all there! Give him the queen crown that you know you want to give him. That will be his epilogue.
That's pretty delicious.
I cannot see it happening. If it does, this is another thing I will apologize for, but also I will congratulate you on.
But Dancing Vero saying that Sanji is a lesbian is so true.
Kuma sent him to Ivankov for a reason. Kuma said, I know what you are. Kuma sent Sanji to Ivankov for a reason. Sanji was paralleled with Bon Clay for a reason. Sanji has a very familiar fighting style to both Bon Clay and Ivankov for a reason. He's going to open his restaurant on the seas and also be the new queen of Kamabaka. I feel it in my soul.
All right.
I feel it in my soul.
I think that Mihawk is going to end up opening a school for swordsmanship.
I guess he is a character introduced here. I think he's going to die. Yeah. I think he's going to die and Zoro has to kill his killer.
He's gonna die. I think he's going to open up a sword school. He's going to get over his cranky ass crankiness and realize that he doesn't need to be a lone wolf, that in fact that you don't do any growing or changing as a person if you're always alone. And I think that he is going to open a school that gives confidence to young people.
I think he's dead.
That's something actually that I didn't really mention, but I think Zoro makes Mihawk quite soft, which is odd to say because it's like, but Mihawk looks really rough, you know? But Mihawk purposely kept Zoro alive. Like, that was an act of mercy from Mihawk, what he did to Zoro. Then we get to Thriller Bark, and we have Mihawk watching Zoro try to get out to the sea, and Mihawk is like, come back to my castle. The monkeys don't go near it. Come back and, like, you know, let me help you, basically. And he's being, you know, he's being all weird about it, like, oh my god, whatever.
I mean, he was like, you disappointed me for being so weak, and then Zoro says it's for Luffy, and Mihawk's like, all right.
Right? But the fact that Mihawk even wants to help Zoro in the first place, even just by bringing him to his castle, is like, there is a softness that Zoro brings out of Mihawk, and I don't really know why. I think it's because he either sees himself in Zoro, like a younger version of himself in Zoro, or he sees someone he used to know in Zoro. And I think it might be the second one. I think he's got a past with someone that we haven't met yet.
I think that Luffy and Zoro are not going to get what they want in the way they imagine it. I think they are going to have their dreams fulfilled in a way that is not exactly what they have envisioned. So I think that Shanks will die before Luffy can give the hat back to him. And I think that for a long time I was like, yes, someone's going to kill for a long. Yes, I do. I actually believe that. And for a long time,
Tragic piece.
For a long time believed that Mihawk will be killed by a swordsman that Zoro then has to beat. And for a long time, I was like, this is something I don't believe in, because in what world is it going to be Shiryu? Shiryu doesn't have the swagger. He doesn't have the vibe. He doesn't have I'm the world's greatest swordsman energy. And I think that wouldn't feel like the right thing. But I could see it being Ethan Baron von Nies Juro, or whatever his fucking dumb name is, because he's got the swagger, he has the aura, he is a swordsman, and he actually has one of the Ichimonjis, which also has me going, yeah, that feels like it could be who kills him. Kitetsu, he has a Kitetsu. You're right. I thought it was a no, it's a Kitetsu.
Can you imagine Shanks standing on a boat on the water and he's screaming out to Luffy and he's saying, you're going to have to find somebody. I guess you're going to have to find somebody else to give the hat to, Luffy. And Luffy's like, "Don't you die, Shanks!" And he's like,
and then Buggy the Clown appears.
and
I'll
then,
take
and then he
that.
goes,
Yeah.
"We all have a destiny, Luffy. Find somebody else who's ready to meet theirs." And then he goes off to die.
Wow. No! Oh my god.
Is there any other characters we want to do an epilogue for? I don't know. Zeff is fine. I don't think we ought to worry. Johnny and Yosuke, fuck, man. I think they're just doing it. I think they're just doing what they're going to be doing.
They're chilling in Allen Park. They've made a home there. It's very cute.
I think they're done.
Well, Nummy's Island, not Allen Park.
You know, whatever.
I don't remember what it's called.
You know,
Yeah,
Island
God,
Island.
Archer would kill me. Oh, he'd kill me. He just gave me a whole geography lesson for One Piece recently. Shit. Kokoyashi. God, thank you. One of my favorite things that Oda has shown is the Straw Hats when they've like grown up, right? Like 40 and 60 years old. And I love Sanji's so dearly because at 40, he resembles his mother quite heavily. And then at 60, he resembles Zeff quite heavily. And it's like, you are clearly seeing the two most important people in Sanji's life being mirrored through him at different stages of his life. And that's just so, it makes my heart weep, you know? Like, he loves his mom so much. He's literally embodying his mother. He looks like his mother at 40 years old. And then at 60, he looks like Zeff. And it's like, oh, he loves them, you know?
His particular future visions also highlight that Sanji's arc is not about like a nobody who's rising to accomplishment. It's about someone who inherently has a lot of potential, because his bad ending is not a washed up loser who didn't become anything for himself like the other crew members. He's just kind of inherently that guy. It's losing himself to his worst tendencies and becoming like Judge. Yeah, still a big deal, but in the worst way.
Yeah, Sanji's literally terrified of embodying the wrong person, like of representing the wrong person. He just wants to always embody those that he loves. That's why he's always like he's got his mother's heart. He clearly has his mother's heart and emotions that makes me weep. And then he's got Zeff's teachings as well in him in a big way.
For the other kids, because who knows who they would have been if they weren't genetically modified? Like, you kind of have to sit there and be like, we also didn't get to those other kids also didn't get to come into their own fruition. And then Sanji not wanting to be like his dad is just evidence he's not, because it's like, if you're like, is this a narcissistic tendency? Am I narcissistic? They're like, if you're worried about being a narcissist, you're not a narcissist. So if you're worried about becoming your dad and you don't want to embody him, then you're not. Don't worry.
If you're worried about being a narcissist and you're not a narcissist, I'm looking directly at Doflamingo as you say that.
He is
the most narcissistic. He would be like, oh, I would never be a narcissist, he says. Like, oh my God, he's just so despicable.
We decided to stop doing the regular stuff we did before, like favorite character, Luffy, minor character, etc., just because it felt like too much of a retread. So we're trying to focus on things that are more forward-looking, like where characters will end up for how we're going through on our second reading. Just doing different closing segments. Find them as we go.
Look how pretty. Are you going to put your little symbol on?
A beautiful little tattoo. Oh yeah, I usually put the little guy on, don't I? But
if you want to know more about Baratie and the East Blue as a whole, I've done a whole video and a retrospective on the East Blue as a saga. If you want to watch that. And if you want to know more about Sanji, I've done a whole video about Sanji as well. In fact, it's one of my most popular videos. And hopefully that will convince you to like Sanji. One of my greatest fates ever is convincing people to like Sanji when they previously didn't, and I will keep going until the day I die. Around me, you will like Sanji, whether you like it or not.
Is that a threat or a promise?
It's a threat. It's a threat. I'm plugging Sanji. And also my channel, of course. Oh my God, MELONTEEE, just MELONTEEE. You know, please go look at it. Thank you.
We got to thank the patrons. Mel, I'm going to give you a range of numbers and you're going to pick one. Mel, can I have a number from 1 to 21?
3.
3. Mel, you picked one that this is so hard to pronounce. I think I know what it is. I think it's a joke. Thank you to the special squishy Cockenbauz, spelled COQNBAUZ. Thank you, Cockenbauz.
That's perfect for me to pick.
You're the special squishy of the day, being thanks for bringing us this content. And thanks as always to the crew, Dark A. Kuro, Draco Meme, Dr. Jack, Icy Knives, and NX Love. Thank you guys a pile.
I have been waiting so long for someone to pick number 3, Mel. I just want to personally thank you for doing that.
That's okay. Thanks,
I've been waiting
Sanji.
for
He was
so
my
long.
inspiration to pick 3.
Beautiful,
Fucking
beautiful.
balls. I'm just can't even believe we've never got to say that before.
Cock and bows. It's been lovely having you. Here's how we sign off. It's terrible. The way we sign off is what I would call awful.
Terrible.
We all try to simultaneously say it's been lovely talking to you. And here's the fun part.
And it's never gone well.
We will fail. Are you ready?
And it's been, what is it? It's been lovely talking to you.
It's been lovely talking to you. Yeah. Everybody, thank you for being here. We love having you. This was a blast. Just have a good one, YouTube. And until next time.
Squish on squishies.
It's been
lovely talking to you.
It's been lovely talking to you.
I was close to good, but you failed.
I was scared.